Hello and welcome to the Futro Hidden Movie Gems podcast. I'm your host, Ty Spiker Christensen. I saw the sadness in her eyes, and I thought, I'm the sadness. All right. And we've got Jordan Christensen on the podcast.
I am very sad. So very sad.
I don't remember that being a line in the movie.
I was quoting Scott Pilgrim. Isn't that what he says? Very sad.
I'm sad, so very sad. So sad.
So
Thank you.
sad.
This next song is called We Hate You, Please Die. All right. And we've got Cameron Mickle on the podcast.
It would be better for him to have had a large millstone hung around his neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea.
That's
Dang.
right.
How is nobody quoted? I was gonna quote the main
God's children are
God's
not for
children
sale.
are not for
Yeah,
sale.
that's why I thought you were going to say that, cheap.
I was going to, but then I was
got
like,
so
I
many
didn't want to
quotes
take it
from
from
this
you,
movie.
Cameron.
No,
Dude.
I got my own.
Dude, I wanted to do the whole monologue. I put my 45 to my head and asked if God exists, and that would be the time to ask. I was just like, holy fudge. Guys, this movie is muy heavy, as they would say in Chile. Today we're reviewing The Sound of Freedom. This movie is currently in theaters. It was directed by I'm probably gonna butcher his name, Alejandro Monteverde. Yeah. Green Mountain. Cool. I'm just trying to think of the English version of the name. Monteverde. This is the incredible true story of a former government agent turned vigilante who embarks on a dangerous mission to rescue hundreds of children from sex traffickers. Guys, this movie is intense. We're gonna be talking about some intense themes, so maybe not be appropriate for little children's. This movie was well done. Guys, what was it like watching this movie for the first time and rewatching it for the podcast?
All our first times.
It's all of our first times.
Unless you watched it back to back, Ty, yesterday.
No, but I am gonna go see it again. So
What?
that.
You're crazy.
You are crazy for watching. I will not be seeing this movie again.
Yeah, dude. There's something about being the only parent on this podcast talking about this movie. I don't know, but I think this movie is.
I have a child.
Fur babies don't count because I also have a fur baby, and I couldn't have cared less about my dog. In fact, I would sell my dog into slavery.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm trying to add some levity.
Well,
and that
you don't care anymore, but
so.
at the time, like, it was just funny because everybody else on the family text would post pictures of their babies, and you guys would keep posting pictures of your dog like all the time.
See,
It
it's
was
so funny that you're
hilarious.
saying that because I'm experiencing that now on my wife's side of the family. They're texting pictures of their cat, and I'm like, stop. Stop. Am I guilty of that? Did I send pictures of the dog?
Yeah.
Of
Oh,
course
yeah.
I did.
A lot.
All the
Yeah.
time.
That's
Anytime
so
a
funny.
baby picture would pop up, you guys would send a picture of you and your dog.
You and Becca. I was like,
That's so
I mean, I
funny.
love Becca, so I was like,
I do love Becca.
No, that's super funny though. I'm guilty as charged. That's right. Guys, holy crap. That's actually in my notes. The first thing it says, holy crap. It's in my notes for this movie. Guys, what was it like watching this movie for the first time? I'm in theaters. I was an emotional wreck. I was sobbing. So, although like I'm good at sobbing. I'm quietly sob. So, no, just not a dry eye for very long. This movie had me constantly in tears. So, if there was ever a movie to be emotionally pinged with, this is it for sure.
Yeah, we could hear sniffles going around in the theater.
I heard a lot of coughing and wheezing too. I think a lot of senior clients.
Yeah, there was a lot of old people there.
Ours was just like 100% just old Republicans. Like
Yeah.
if I were to bet my entire life savings on which way people lean, I'm like
I've got some stories from
conservative.
Yeah, I've got some stories that I can get out of the way about my first viewing experience of this. I was sitting next to this old guy, and 3 comments from him during the movie. One, he sees a scene of traffic at the border and he just scoffed. I don't know why. I thought that was funny. He's like, just thought that was funny. I guess traffic. I just get a general sense that this guy doesn't like a lot of people or interactions with people. Another one was amen, which made me laugh, like an audible amen at the end of the movie. Literally said it out loud. It's just like amen. I thought that was great. He's in agreement. He agrees with this movie. And then a really, really funny one was where did I put it? So so there's a scene in the movie where bureaucracy kind of gets in the way of it puts them in jeopardy of pursuing the mission, right? Bureaucracy. And the guy next to me, this old folk, is like, yeah, dang right. I don't know why it made me laugh so hard. Anyway, it made me think of Dad a lot. It's like, yeah, all this red tape or whatever, or not red tape, but yeah, like
Like a
There's
Jack
rules
Bauer
that need to be
moment
adhered
in
to.
24.
Yeah. He's like, if Jack Bauer were here, he could have fixed all this, you know.
Well,
he
he's
would
above
torture
the law.
he would torture the right people, you know.
I
Yeah.
just kept thinking of person of interest too. I'm like, that wouldn't have stopped John.
Yeah, if only we had John Wick or we had Kiefer Sutherland's 24, Jack Bauer. Yeah. So but yeah, this movie was a big watch. And then lastly, being in the theater, I'm a little disappointed with the sounds of the movie because I think the theater I was in, I could hear The Conjuring 4 going on in
Yeah,
the
we
theater
could
next to
hear
me.
the bass of the next theater beside us.
So maybe this movie was played a little quieter. Was yours too quiet? Mine was too
I don't know
quiet.
about too quiet. It's just they just
Okay.
didn't do very much music at certain times. There was just it
For
was
sure.
silenced, so you could
Yes,
feel it more.
there's
But it's just
yes.
like the other theaters, because it was silent so often, you could hear the bass of the other movies.
Okay, good. So it wasn't just me, but I also had a hard time. I think my theater had the issue where the audio was coming in just fine, but the sound and sound mixing was coming in fine too, like the sound effects of feet shuffling and knocking on doors. But like the music was very quiet. It was almost like, you know,
Mm.
if you ever take your headphones and you partially unplug it from your phone,
Yeah.
and then you get like some of the music coming through, but some other parts of the music, I don't know what that is, but that's a thing. And you guys probably scratching your head because you're like, what is a headphone that you have to plug in? We used to have things that were cords, folks. Okay. And I still have one, my headphones now. But anyway, so that was my movie theater experience, and it was almost ruined by the fact, yeah, I'm listeling to The Conjuring 3 while trying to watch this movie.
I was like thinking
So,
we're talking to like 12-year-olds.
well, no, see, antiquated technology, because no, generations from now, Cameron, that's who it's for. Generations from now, they're gonna be like,
No,
what?
okay.
You're talking about headphones? What are you talking about?
Because I'm like, I had a CD player for my iPod. Like I had that one that Jordan put those stickers on.
You're the last, Cameron. You're the last. You got vestiges of like the '90s, us kids growing up, early 2000s. You got some weird stuff. Like, you
Now
know
they
what
have
it
all those
means to
YouTube
rewind
videos
a
about
VHS.
kids that like are like, here you go, let's try to use this, and it's like
They
it's an
give him
old CD player. They're like, what?
they give him stuff that I know how to operate, and I'm like, oh, I feel old now because these kids are like, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm
That's
just
funny.
like, you're not that young, are you? Or are you that old? Am I that old? Yeah, it's freaking me out. So anyway, Cameron, how about you, man? What was it like watching this movie for the first time rewatching for the podcast?
Yeah, me and Jordan went to watch it in theaters. I was pretty excited to go see it just because I'd seen a lot of things like on TikTok talking about how like people had a bunch of problems where like theaters would turn off AC in the room where like they were showing Sound of Freedom. People had pulled like fire alarms in the room of Sound of Freedom, like a lot of things to like try to avoid people from seeing it, which I was like, that's kind of sketch. Which I don't know if that was honestly people trying to get Sound of Freedom like promoted even more.
Yeah.
The government doesn't want you, but like for me, it got me hooked because I'm super rebellious. I'm like, oh, now I want to see it more because like
Taboo.
yeah, then I'm like
Yeah.
not supposed to see it.
Right.
And was
Oh,
it you
don't
that
even get me
told?
started. There are articles about QAnon conspiracies linked to this movie. We can talk about this after our review of the movie, but I'll talk to you about that, Cameron. It's weird.
And my favorite fact, I don't know if it's actually a fact, but I've heard from many people that this made more money the first day than Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it's just I'm pretty sure. So opening day, Indiana Jones made I think like 13 million, and then this opening day, July 4th, made 17 million.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's what I saw, but
which I love because Vid Angel's attached to this, who was notably sued by Disney because of their editing of their film. So I'm like, who's laughing now? Disney?
Well, and it's funny
Stupid.
because I heard that they bought the rights from Disney to get the story because Disney's like, we're not gonna produce this story.
Well, it's counterintuitive to what they want to do to kids. You
Yes.
know? Dude, I'll talk to you about that.
You're thinking of
Oh, that's right.
anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
No, so
Boom.
but so going into watching it, man, yeah, me and Jordan.
They knew Cameron. Sorry, I just had a quote spotlight.
me and Jordan were talking about it after, just like it was traumatic, that opening scene of just like what movie is that shows like the actual violence? Is that 28 Days Later? What movie is that starts off with
28
like
weeks later, probably.
No, what's the one?
Or
That's
days, yeah, days. Sorry, they show a bunch of footage of like rioting and
violence. Yeah. And I just remember like similar to that. I was just like,
Jordan, Man Comes Around plays by Johnny Cash. Come on, Jordan.
And the kids getting snatched. Oh my gosh, that was
And so that it was just insane. I'm like, this is real. Holy. And so that was I mean, traumatizing start, and then yeah, I mean, an insane movie. Just like I think they did a really good job of, I think, sitting in the uncomfortable, and so like
Yes, too
I
long.
like. But and so honestly, I think that was the purpose of it, and I'll kind of get into that with some of my favorite things. But yeah, I was really impressed just by overall, like my first watch. I thought it was fantastic. I don't know if I ever want to watch it again, but like it is like fantastic.
And I just want to reiterate again, we'll talk more about this, but this has a PG-13 rating, and it didn't feel exploitative. But I understand what you're saying, Cameron. Like at no
Yeah.
point, again, Cuties could have taken a the playbook from this movie. Amazing, you can talk about these themes and not actually do the thing that you tout as a problem, like the sexual exploitation of children. Doesn't it
Well,
talks about it in this movie, and they never do it to a single child.
we'll see.
Hence, I mentioned Cuties because again, they sexualized these teens and they said it was a problem, but they did it in the movie. And I'm like, maybe in the format of a book, like you could talk about these things, but like you actually did the thing. That's like, I start beating my wife and tell her how bad it is, like it's a problem where you do the behavior and
Interesting
then you're
comparison.
like, hey, yeah, well, I mean, it's a true comparison. I beat my wife all the time. So it's The Shining, right? Like Stanley Kubrick notably was horrible to Shelley Duvall. And he was like, oh, I gotta get the performance out of her. And it's like, okay, anyway, looking at you, Stanley Kubrick, you bad man. Okay. Two love his films though. Keep going, Jordan. What about you watching this movie?
Now you got me thinking about Stanley Kubrick. Let's see.
Yeah.
So this film is yeah, it's just a hard one. I didn't really want to headline this one. Not because I don't think I do.
Headline. You make it sound like people are like waiting to hear what we have to post every week.
I know.
There's Flash, everybody, all those
I-
listeners out there, the podcast.
No, but I'm just curious as to because when he said like more people need to watch this, I just is it because just more people need to be aware? I guess I'm kind of curious as to you guys' thoughts because
yes, I've got a lot of thoughts about that.
Okay, good. Because Cameron mentioned, and I liked what he said after the movie because I was just like, I was like, I don't understand why.
Well,
more
he was
people
just, yeah, Jordan was just kind of like, well, like what does essentially telling the story like benefit? And for me, my perspective is I think it's just like for the point of the parents, it's just to get awareness out to parents essentially that this does exist. So to be more careful and like with your children, essentially to be like it's not as safe as it used to be where you could just let your children be like going wherever they want, like and be with random people and then be fine. It's like this is a crazy thing that's going on that like it's actually real and not be like, oh, that's something that happens to other people in different neighborhoods. It's like it can happen.
Yeah, well, I just wondered if because I was wondering the whole time, I'm like, well, what can I do to help? Like, because I just didn't feel like there was any kind of resolution.
Well, at the end of the movie,
you can become a serial killer of pedophiles, Jordan.
Yeah, Dexter.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Hey, Jordan, never trust a pedophile. All right. I thought I'd trust you. Oh, man, love that.
That was a good line.
It's funny too because I've heard the criticisms about this film, and I'm like, okay, you can attack this point from a standpoint of like from a filmmaking perspective. Like I notice things like editing and sound mixing and all those things because I'm a weirdo that likes film. But like I'm seeing a lot of people attacking a lot of other things that I'm like, it does raise a red flag, right? I mean, it's like the politician that wants to legalize marrying your cousin. You're like, not for me, but I just think we should have more freedom in general. And you're like, it's weird to hear that person try to justify. So it's like people that are like, this film shouldn't be seen by other people. It's like they're largely either trafficking the children themselves or they're pedophiles and they want to normalize this stuff. So movies like this hurt that because I felt absolutely squeamish during this movie, but not because it was exploitative. It's because it rang true that one, this is happening at an alarming rate. And this is what I think a lot of the things about why I think more people should see this film and talk about it is I believe, and I've heard this said, that politics is largely downstream from culture. And what do I mean by that? You have politicians and people that want your vote, and if they speak to the things that matter to you as a culture, you're going to put them in positions of power. Whether they effectuate change or not, that's another thing entirely. But let's say as a cultural society, we all value protecting children. the most innocent and vulnerable among us. If we really believe that, we would elect politicians and leaders that would try to effectuate change, all balanced, geared toward the overcoming this challenge. How do we protect as many kids as possible? So I really believe that more awareness of this. So at the very end, Jim Caviezel, the actor, gives like this announcement, and he talked about how, Uncle Tom's Cabin, right? Which is unfortunate because the movie. So have you guys heard of the book? Do you guys understand the book works? Basically, in a nutshell, back when slavery was legal, this book existed. It was a
Oh,
family from
Lincoln?
Connecticut. What was that?
Is this the one that like Lincoln told or whatever?
So Lincoln mentioned he's like, you are the lady responsible for this whole war, the Civil War, largely fought over civil rights about slave owners. And there's other issues too going on at the time that the war was fought over, but it's one of the prevailing issues arising from the North and the South. And what's so interesting is years later, so this book is largely credited to ending slavery and changing people's minds on feeling more empathetic, feeling more empathetic and sympathetic to the blight of African Americans in the U.S. Slavery as a whole, as being framed as like a bad thing. So this book had a lot to do with that. And what I thought was interesting is it's very easy. And Jim Caviezel and not Tom Holland, what's his name? The guy that plays Timothy Ballard. They talk about this, that
Jim
it's
does
very
play
easy
Tim
with
Ballard.
hindsight.
Talking about Vampiro.
No, sorry, but Tim Ballard is the actual agent. He's a real person that Jim Caviezel played. He's an agent. Right. So I was listening to an interview that they did with Jordan Peterson, and Jim Caviezel talks about the movie, and with Tim Ballard there as well, and they talk about this. And it's very easy hindsight where you can point to the villain or point to a problem and be like, oh, yeah, slavery was an issue. We all universally agree. And it's very easy to say that. And he goes, what's harder about this is that it's going on right now, and a lot of people are refusing to acknowledge it. And it's not, some people think it's not polite in conversation. Some people think it's not okay to talk. Like, it's hard. And a lot of people feel powerless to do anything. So what I thought is, yeah, like they were saying, we got to get more people to see this movie. It's bringing awareness to an issue that a lot of people are tut-tutting or just looking the other way because it's pretty horrific.
So it's
And we
like
just want to look.
he wants us to people to keep it in the conversation, kind of,
Yeah. So like
that
I
things
said,
can get done.
politics and rulemaking and legislation gets passed based on what people value as a culture. So like if culturally we think we really care about these kids, God's children are not for sale. Even if you don't believe in God, it's like, let's just assume innocent children are not for sale. I could get on board with that. Most people should be able to get on board with that. The only one that are opposed to it, I would hate to see your private life. It's a very simple premise, and it's so weird that we live in a time where it's controversial. There's plenty of issues around it. Jim Caviezel admits that this movie was made 5 years ago, and they're only now able to release it thanks to the help of VidAngel. VidAngel's, responsible for The Chosen, which we've also talked about here on the podcast. VidAngel was the ones that are distributing this movie. The problem that they're running to, it's crazy that you talked about the sabotage going on. There's articles being written about how like this plays into like QAnon conspiracy theorists. People with brainworms are the ones that understand, or like this is your far right conspiracy theorists, males with brainworms or something like that. Anyway, they talk about QAnon conspiracies and all that stuff. It's so weird that, so years later, the Uncle Tom's Cabin book, it has stereotypes about African Americans in the book that now are viewed as racist. So the term Uncle Tom is like an offensive term. And it's because, again, this book is largely responsible for ending slavery and the opinions of people in the South about slavery. It helped change and shift. It's very progressive at the time.
Yeah.
But years later, now people look back on it and they're like, so a derogatory term would be an Uncle Tom because it's like someone that's overly trying to appease someone or please someone, right? Like, will just do whatever they're told. And it's a very derogatory term. And so now years later, they're like, oh, there's also stereotypes in the book that would be, offensive by today's standards. And it's like, it's so crazy because like it's weird that we've come so far as a culture where now looking back on something that ended slavery, which we all can agree was a morally good thing to do, ending slavery, now looked at, it's like without the context of slavery, you're like, oh, there's harmful stereotypes in that book. And what's so crazy about this movie is like you have someone shedding light on a real problem that's going on currently right under our noses in a lot of cases. And a lot of people, like Cameron, you're blowing my mind. I didn't know about the actual sabotage of the theaters.
Yeah.
That's very enlightening, because a lot of people are taking this as a reason to, you know, for whatever reason, but they're trying to castigate this as something that it's not. So what I suggest is you should see this movie. I really think you should see it for yourself. Like I said, it's a PG-13 rating, but if you're a parent, this movie will destroy you. It's very it's very
It's a sensitive subject that a lot of people just
sensitive.
don't
Yeah.
want to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same
Exactly.
with like people in our religion don't want to talk about pornography, but it's like it's a
So
thing that
prevalent. Yeah.
yeah,
Or
and
even sex generally, you know, like I mean
that's a good point.
relationships.
Yeah.
It's like we believe in like procreating and creating life, but it's like don't talk about sex with the youth. I mean, I get it, like it's weird, but it's like we've stigmatized it so much that there's other problems arising, unintended consequences, if you will, as a result. Definitely. Don't misunderstand me. I don't think kids need to be learning about it before they're old enough to even ask about it. So take it easy,
He
Disney.
wants to taser 7-year-old.
That's right. Brian Regan, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to talk about two of our favorite things from this film. From a movie standpoint, I think it's really cool when you can watch a movie in the 21st century and a movie moved me more than I can say any movies in the last decade. So yeah, it's not every day that I watch a movie and again that I'm even moved or even think about something differently, but yeah, this movie really moved me in a way that I wasn't anticipating.
His
So,
heart grew 3 times in size after watching this movie.
yeah, I don't know about you, but I whipped out my phone and scanned the QR code. So like it's not even
I'm in
about
no financial position to be able to do that.
no, I should
I'm the one
clarify.
that
I'm
should be
not
getting that
I
money.
haven't donated any money yet, but I have the QR code in my phone and I'm like, I'm just waiting to figure out because I want to go see it a second time and I want to know how much I'm willing to contribute, if at all. But I am gonna I grabbed out my phone and I snapped the QR code because I've never seen a movie do that. And it's almost like again, I've heard people attribute you know, Tim Ballard being like, oh, this is exploitative. This is just a way to get more people to see this film. But I was like, I loved his hypothesis. His whole theory. My second favorite thing was that at the end of this movie, Jim Caviezel, the actor, comes out and says, the true hero of this movie are these two kids. And that made me lose it again, which how many times did I freaking cry during this movie? But I was like, that's like what a true hero does. Like they uplift other people. And there's a lot of issues surrounding the topic of this. You could argue that this movie doesn't do enough to delve into like everything else, like the before after all this. And it's like, yeah, I understand. There's a lot of fallout. There's a lot of issues. There's a lot of complications. It's like this is a difficult thing. But that's my second favorite thing is that the kids are the heroes of this movie, and I thought that was really remarkable. So good on you, filmmakers. And without getting emotional, Cameron, say your two favorite things. Yeah, Cameron, what are your two favorite things?
So my
Yeah.
first favorite thing is kind of what I already mentioned of how I think it does a good job. See, because I think it sat at initially I was like, it sits too much in the uncomfortable. But I think that kind of fits into a little bit what Ty was mentioning as well, is that's kind of the purpose of this film, is because I think it's easy, like a lot of inspirational films, it's kind of like that. I think of it similar to like a like a service trip to like Tanzania or something like that. It's just the right amount where it's like I can be good and serve and like help these people knowing I get to go home to my
How about
house.
like Manus Brazil, right?
Yeah, yeah. that also was wild. So it's just kind of like that perfect amount. Like that's what a lot of people like and prefer. It's like just enough for me to feel like I'm a good person and I'm helping out, but not enough to where like it's affecting my life in kind of any way. And so I think that's what was kind of cool about this is it made you uncomfortable. And on personally, I wish he wouldn't have found her because I think it would have driven the message home even better. Because it would have, because I wish it would have just ended right when the like after they do like the raid on the island, and then it just ends there. And then, but like, because I wish it would have just ended on the line where he was like, "You didn't find her, but you saved 52 kids." And so, kind of just that mentality of like, it's easy to just from the outside say like, "Oh, well, you did so much good."
Don't worry, Cameron. They did have a fake out though after the island raid. She isn't there, and I was devastated right then. So
Yeah.
don't.
Well, see,
They do
well,
tease that
well,
it
and that's why
didn't work.
I
Yeah.
just wish that she wouldn't have been found, because then I would think it would have driven home the message even deeper that like he did so much good, but still there's a dad who every night when he's tucking his son into bed, he walks past his daughter's room and she's not there. Just because I think it drives home more like, and I do understand that they're also trying to show the angle like, oh well, even though this chick is saved, like there's still a lot of implications afterwards where they're not going to be the same, like that they would have just grown up regularly, and how traumatic that is for them.
Right. See, that's what
But
I got from the ending. It's hopeful, and yet it doesn't
yeah,
paint an idealistic. This family's
yeah.
gonna have to pick up broken
And Cameron's not
pieces.
saying
You
he
know?
didn't want the girl not to get saved. He's
Yeah,
just saying
Cameron's
the
like,
message. Because you kept saying,
I
"I
really
wish
Cameron
she."
said he would have gotten in the way of them saving it. Actually,
Yeah, you
I
just
think he
kept
was one of the
saying.
guys chasing him with a gun. Yeah.
Well, you just
Bring
kept
her
saying,
back.
"I wish she didn't get saved." I'm like, okay, well, maybe just word that a little differently.
Yeah, Cameron.
For the film,
Yes, I
obviously.
know.
I
Yeah,
don't wish
so
children aren't saved
we
from
could talk
child
about that too.
traffickers.
When this says based on a true story, like this is based off a real agent.
But was the
Tim
girl
Ballard.
part true?
Yeah,
The
that
girl part.
when
That's
he go,
interesting that you say that. So the
'Cause That
discovery,
that felt kind of like Hollywood to me.
and it was like part of it. You have to understand, like, so based on a true story, it's like this is a guy that's actually saved hundreds of kids, right, in different
Sure.
operations around the world. They're already making a sequel to this movie about his exploits in Haiti. Apparently, he did two other stings that were going on at the time that this was taking place. So this guy is like everywhere. He's all over the world helping
The
issues
John
that
Wick
are.
of child traffickers.
Yeah, that's right.
or what's
So
the Taken?
yeah,
Yeah,
Taken is another like this movie follows a lot more like a Taken, and
he
to
is
me, I'm
Liam
like,
Neeson.
yeah, you have to understand like a movie following the hero's journey, it needs to fit like certain structures, and real life very rarely does it actually play out like a movie.
Mhm.
So you tell a story. Now again,
That's
I
why I
actually
wish it would have
yeah,
ended that way. It's just because I feel like
yeah.
it's like, oh, obviously we would love as the audience to see the daughter brought home, but it's like, but so would the father. And it's like, and it's like some of these parents like are
It's
never going
the
to get to see their
it's
child
the
ever again.
ending we wanted, but maybe not the ending we deserve, right? Yeah.
Yeah, just because that's
Yeah.
why I feel like the whole message, and that's why I love how, because like the scenes where I just think, and to kind of my second favorite thing to kind of play even more on top of that first one is I think the framing of this movie is what makes it PG-13. And this is what I wish a lot of rated R's like that are horrific, like Requiem for Dream, Jordan. I think even the audio is enough. Like similar, see, I think Sicario, one of the most horrifying scenes in Sicario is the drain
So
shot.
good. I just
Because
watched that
I think
again.
the drain shot lets you imagine, oh my gosh, what is he doing to
Oh,
this guy?
yeah.
This movie, yes,
And so
that's interesting that you say that. When you said discomfort, Cameron, this plays like the Jaws movie, where the horrors of your imagination are far worse than, again, like what they could have even legally gotten away with.
yeah,
With kid.
see,
Well, I don't know. Cuties pushed the boundary, so maybe they could have
because
gotten it with just
that's just
fine.
the thing that
But
I'm thinking
yeah,
about. Like, for example, in this film, I think it did a great job of framing where it's like, and even editing, where yeah, it's obviously not a masterpiece by any frame of the imagination, but like
right.
little scenes where it's like you just see um like little Teddy on the bed, and then like you just see like a guy standing on the edge of the bed, and then like he undoes his belt, and then it ends, and you're just like,
I thought that was too far. I was just like, oh, please
I
stop. At every
But
minute,
see,
I was like,
yeah,
please end this. I just
well,
can't
see,
do this
and that's what
anymore.
and that's what I think it's like the purpose of the film is just to, because it's easy to be like, to hear it essentially as like an investigator, to be like, to hear what happened and like that's so terrible. But that's what I think also, I think trying to expose you to that as much without actually having to like traumatize you with that, I think
right.
also brings a level of sympathy and understanding, like, holy
I
like,
mean,
I think you mentioned it right, Jordan, and
well,
Cameron. Sorry, Cameron, you're mentioning it right, and Jordan, I agree with you. Where it's like, I wish this would end. One thing that gave me confidence was at the very beginning when Jim Caviezel sits down and
and he's
watches
looking at the
these
computer. I
VHS
was
tapes.
like scared I was going to see something in his eyes. I was like, I don't want to see
I
anything.
know, I was too, but I thought it's so cool, guys. I'm gonna send you the podcast where Jordan Peterson talks to Jim Caviezel and to Tim Ballard, and it's heart wrenching, just like this was. And he's like, yeah, he's like, a lot of people suffer from PTSD because they see not only hardship, but they see malicious intent. And that's where PTSD largely comes from. Some people do experience PTSD just from traumatic expenses, or experiences, but it usually comes when there's malicious intent. And so it's like, that's why you get so many children that suffer from this stuff, because they're the most innocent among us, and they see the predations, and they're not even old enough to understand this, but it's just pure malicious. And you could see that so prominent in this movie. They did a really good job at. Okay, so get into your second favorite thing, Jordan, because I got to talk about one of my favorite
Well,
characters of this movie,
I don't know if I
Vampiro.
said any of my favorite, but I just,
Yeah,
there was one shot that was really good. I
yeah.
know, like Cameron said, yeah, it would have been fun to see it by like a more experienced director, but I did love the shot where uh he was standing as the car left, and it was just like from behind, and you just see his silhouette. That was a great shot.
Yeah, he
Um,
looks down at the medallion or whatever.
yeah. Uh,
Father and son
I
leave.
just like the idea that just like what's going on in his head right now, and he doesn't need to be telling you. It's like, he's suffering. So
This is the craziest thing. I heard someone argue like, "Oh, he captured children or whatever, and what was the call to action?" And I'm like, "Were you watching the same movie I was?" So he's like, there's a great scene where he's training a new guy on the job, and he's like, "I can't do this job." It's like, this is horrific. I just keep seeing the children's faces. And he's like, "How many of these kids have you seen?" He goes, "Well, I've put away like 300 predators." And he's like, "Yeah, but like, how many kids do you save?" And he goes, "Well, I can sleep good at night knowing I'm putting away bad guys." And then it's not until he finally meets this kid, and the kid's like, "Could you please save my sister?" That's the call to action. I'm like, that's what motivates him. And then he gets the medallion. He's like, "Give this to my sister, please." Like, she gave it to me through the most horrific experience that this kid could ever be put through. And the daughter gave it to him. And again, that's why the kids are the hero of the story. And that's when he's given the medallion from this boy, and he's like, "I got to go find this." That's the call to action. He didn't want
see,
to do
but
it. He was like, "I'm perfectly fine putting away bad guys."
see, but
And then, yeah.
I even had gripes with the cop to call him out like that, because I'm like, so your resolution to the action is to no longer catch the bad guys.
100%, which is why I'm like,
I'm
this
like,
this
okay,
jerk
so
guy. He's like,
like,
"Oh,
oh, I can't do this because you're not even actually doing any good. It's like, so your solution to this horrific evil is to walk away.
and do
And that's why
nothing."
I'm just like,
No, but
you're
Cameron,
not
this is
being
what's
some hero being like, well, I'm not
right.
actually making a difference. I'm like,
Yes,
shut up. He's at
right.
least trying.
He's trying. No, Cameron, this is
I-
so crazy. So in actual life, the people that approached him, so he actually used to work in like a counterterrorism unit. He heard about like weapons being smuggled because he speaks Spanish. He's a Latter-day Saint, by the way. Tim Ballard. I don't know if you guys knew this. He's got 8 kids now at the time of this movie
That
and
makes
the events
sense.
of it.
Just
He had
when I
6
saw the big
kids.
family, I wondered if he was, but
Yeah, of course, yeah. So he's a Latter-day Saint, and he was initially intrigued. He was a first responder in 9/11, and he was there. Went to the
I the only thing
helped the wreckage.
only thing I wondered is, was there a longer conversation between him and his wife? Because I don't know any
Oh, guys,
woman.
guys,
I don't know any woman that
yes,
would just be like, go
guys,
help him.
I'm gonna give you some juicy things about this.
I
Okay,
feel like
Okay.
See,
he's
and that's
my
why we can talk
child.
about this a lot.
Like,
See, but a part of me is like, I want to talk about the real story as well as the movie. And again, this
Mm.
podcast, maybe we'll delve a little, because this is one of the few movies that moved me where I was like, I got to know what happened. Because I agree with you, Jordan. His wife didn't feature enough. And I
'Cause
think that
I'll just
they're
tell you
kind
right
of,
now, my wife would not have been okay with it. She'd be like,
so get this. Okay. So let me give some context.
get yourself a new woman then,
So,
George.
So he actually worked as like a counter-terrorist unit that was helping fight like arms dealing and smuggling. And then people approached him. He goes, I actually don't know why I was offered the job or they approached me, but they did ask, and it was a requisite that he had a religious affiliation and background that could potentially prevent someone from being destroyed by this line of work, which is weird. That was a requisite for him taking the job, is that he had a religious background. Like, I guess people extending this job, they're like, we know you would have to have something to hold on to in order to
Oh
deal with
yeah,
this stuff.
because it's like if there's
Because
no,
otherwise you're
well,
just gonna delve into the absolute
but I
abyss.
just
You're gonna
wonder though
stare and
too though if it's like what if people lose their faith because it's like how could there be a God if people
Interesting you
do
say that,
this?
but it's really interesting. You guys definitely need to listen to Jordan Peterson podcast with both Jim Caviezel
All
and
right,
Tim
you
Ballard,
plugged it 3
because
times. We'll check
I
it out.
will, but I want you to know this because he talks about those questions, and I can't do it justice.
And
But yes, his wife did play a bigger role. One of my favorite things about what
ha-
he tells about in the podcast.
Have you listened to Jared's latest episodes? He just bashed the crap out of Peterson lately.
Jared
Bauer.
Bauer.
Yeah.
Oh no, I haven't, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised. And honestly, like, I don't agree with Jared Bauer on everything. I don't
Oh
agree
no,
with
I
Jordan
don't either.
Peterson. No, I don't agree
Yeah.
with Jordan Peterson on
Okay, yeah.
everything. Like, I agree that people have. So I don't know what his issues are. I haven't heard any of that, but I'd be interested to go hear what Jared has to say.
Yeah. I mean, he also talks about how we shouldn't turn to God, and I was like, all right. See, I don't agree, like you said, with everything
Hey,
Jared says.
watch it, buddy. We love you on the podcast. But hey, come on, try it out.
Yeah.
Don't knock it before you try it.
Yeah.
No. But so what's really cool is, so Tim asked his wife, he goes, I have 2 paths. I'm going to lose government backing and funding, and I'm going to lose my job and my pension, which I'm 10 months away from collecting. Someone went over it with him, like his accountant or whatever, because he was trying to figure out what to do. It was basically the summation of about $14 million for the rest of his life. Pretty comfortable pension. And his wife, he asked his wife.
I'd say that.
I'd say that's grounds for saying, yeah, okay, sorry, I couldn't find the kid. I'm
Yeah,
gonna go
but
live just
it's
10 more
like
months, and then I'm safe and I have the pension.
yeah,
Get
choosing
this.
that or having to deal with like what he deals with, I would not. I'd be like, I don't want the money. I don't want to deal with
See,
this.
this is the craziest thing. So he asked his wife, and he goes, I was hoping, I was praying that she would say, be sensible, come home. You have 6 kids. You have me to care for.
Yeah.
He was praying that was going to be what she'd say. The craziest thing is she goes, I'm not going to have you put at risk my salvation for you to give up on that kid.
But I don't think she'd be putting. I think that's a bit harsh to herself. I don't actually believe that she'd be risking her salvation.
I get it too. When I heard that, and so he goes, my wife is much more intelligent than I am spiritually, and he goes, so when I heard her say that, he's like, what? He's like, what are you talking about? And so she goes,
it's the same with like, it was the 3 Nephites or whatever when they're, or not the Nephites, but yeah, it was them. And then the other people are like, I want to ascend now. I don't want to stay on this earth anymore.
I know. They're like, get me out of here.
So I don't think, I'm just saying, just between like this decision.
Jordan, it's crazy. But so let me finish though, because
right, I'm sorry.
She gives him, and she goes, okay, let's do this exercise. She goes, salvation, right? Goes, judgment. You're going to be before the bar of God, and he's going to ask you 2 questions. Could you have saved those kids? And did you?
I mean, okay, keep going.
Why are you rolling your eyes, dude? I'm getting
I don't think
here.
that's the only thing he's going to ask. Is like, this was the only thing I sent you down here to do. Like, I
don't know, Jordan. See, that's the thing. I don't know. I'm not in his shoes. I didn't choose that career path, and part of me is like, oh well, it's just his job. He should be able to do it. I'm like, no one should have to do this, but it's so horrific that we live in a time where this is necessary. And again, I want to talk to you about that.
But I'm just saying, you're kind of negating Christ's atonement here. Like, oh, you didn't do that one thing, so you can't make it into heaven. Like, that's not how it works. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, I hear what you're saying. I'm telling you what their experience is, and you're like, no, they can't think that way. This is what the interview. Listen,
I know.
I'm telling you firsthand.
I'm just saying I disagree with her thought. That's all I'm saying.
Jordan's like, take the pension and run, kid. Screw that kid, man. The father will have other children, right?
Obviously, make an effort, but man, when I don't know, this is the decision. It's like I'm just so glad I haven't had to serve in a war, because you make decisions constantly You know, you watch Saving Private Ryan, it's like they had to make decisions constantly of like life and death decisions that
You
are
err on the side of murder. I'm sorry.
and well, and they air so far outside
Yeah.
of like easy decisions that you can be like, oh, this is good, this is bad. It's like, no, this is, I mean, this is like he'll die or I'll die, but what's
That's
right
where
and wrong, I don't
PTSD
know.
comes from. Yes,
Yeah.
it's horrific.
Anyways, like I said, this
So
is a decision that goes so far
oh,
beyond
oh, I
like,
know. To me, it's like I was really hoping, but get this. This is so cool because it has a good ending, obviously, like
yeah.
his real life. So after hearing this, like the two questions, like that this breaks him, right? And so he goes, you have two paths before you. One, you go down to Colombia. What do you see? And he's like, I see like cobwebs, I see spider, I see like horrific things. And then he's like, and the pension, I could see like a light, like that's a
A
easy,
sliver of light.
yeah, he's like, that's easy. But then what was so remarkable is that he's like, after his wife framed that, the two questions that you'd be asked, he's like, what do you see with the pension? He goes, I see the cobwebs.
Mm.
I would live the rest of my life knowing, like, yeah, I'd be comfortable with like
Oh, I
this
see what you're
pension,
saying. Yeah.
but I would live for the
It'd
rest of
be
my life
always eating away
comfortably.
at him.
It would eat him up. And so this is what's remarkable because that's what drove him to do this thing, right? Because in
Mm.
the end, it was like a lot of it had to do with his wife. And that's why I thought it was sweet when you see him texting his wife and she is a source of light to him. But they almost don't do it enough in the movie. I'm hoping with the sequel that they delve into that. I hope he does. And his relationship to his kids. It's amazing what he tells. He's like, dude, the first time he had to watch the VHS tapes to see like the evil that he was doing. And for court cases, he would have watched this evil and he'd write it down because they didn't show it in court to be merciful to the jury. So he had to transcribe what happens in the film. So horrific. And he goes, I went home. Or he drove like after like the first movie, he drove immediately to his school, signed all of his kids out saying it was a dentist. He took them all home and just wept, like holding his kids. And his kids are probably like, what the freak is going on? Chilling stuff that he's had to witness and go through. Anyway, what I love about it at the end though is so he turned his back on this government job. He's gotten help from sources like Glenn Beck, Tony Robbins, like really rich, wealthy philanthropists, kind of like in the movie where you see him like reach out to that successful
Mm.
business guy. And he's like, well, when you were backed by the government, it was so easy to do this. But he's like, now you're not backed by anything. And then, he begs him basically, imploring like, hey, forget all these kids. Like, just think of this one kid that we could save.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch when he gave him the photo, just to
So sweet.
like
I
a
mean,
dagger in the side. Like,
I know. You're like,
take a look into
okay.
the eyes of the person that's gonna die if you don't help them.
Yeah, if you don't. And again, what at the end, so this is so cool. He is now largely made more from the people that are concerned and believe in his cause. People are volunteering to help in any
Oh,
way they
cool.
can,
Yeah,
donating money. He has now surpassed what he was getting with his government pension.
that's
I'm just
cool.
like, see, this is a story which is so remarkable because again, I agree, Jordan. I'm almost like that is so dang harsh that you would think of it that way, where you're like, God's gonna judge you for being like, my hands are tied by a bureaucracy or whatever it is, right? Like there's so many reasons you could justify out of it, but like for him personally, he had made that decision. He and his wife are like,
Kind of like the
I'm not
Jonah and
gonna
the
have
Well or whatever.
Jonah and the whale.
What,
Oh, like
remember he
decide
gets
to go
eat?
serve a mission. Yeah, he's like, I'm just gonna run away from God. I'm sorry I
Yeah,
didn't teach I didn't proselyte as a missionary. I'm just gonna go run away. And then yeah,
he gets
he's
eaten
on a
by a
ship
well.
and
It's like,
yeah.
all right, I'll go and do it.
I'll do it. I'll do it. Fine.
Uh,
But yeah, he had to descend into the mouth of the beast to have that transformation.
yeah,
And
quite
I think
literally.
yeah, and ironically, yeah, whether you believe it's literal or not, I'm so torn about that. I believe it, but I'm also like 3 days in a well. I don't get it. Either way, metaphorical and literal, it serves the same purpose where you descend into the mouth of the beast and you learn something and you humble yourself before God, and then he's merciful and takes you out of the bondage that you're in. Captivity, both metaphorical and literal. So which I believe is totally capable of doing both. But anyway, that's beside the point. I love that, and I hope that that plays a bigger part in the sequel because the wife largely was the one that convinced it. And I love what he said. He's like, I was just praying that she'd be like, be sensible, come home. Like he was hoping that. And Jordan Peterson was baffled by this. He's like, what about her upbringing? Like why does she have that stance? Like just like you, Jordan. It's like I fundamentally disagree with that, but just almost like why. So that's the last I'll mention of it. You guys got to go listen to that episode. So here we are on a podcast recommending other podcasts that are much better than this one. But I just wanted to say all that because that blew me away and that had me in tears, and it was very moving and very powerful. And it gives more context to all of this, because this at the end of the day is a movie, and it's a jumping off point. Watch the movie, talk about it, research what actually happened, what is still happening to this day, what's changing. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, like this growing industry of child trafficking. Vampiro is like one of the most compelling characters I've seen in a movie in a long time. So this movie stars Jim Caviezel as the agent. Bill Camp plays Vampiro, which is, I think, one of the most
Is that the
interesting
dad?
characters.
Who's this?
No, Bill Camp is Vampiro is the Cuban cigar
ex-cartel.
smoking guy
Oh yeah.
who was a cartel dude, and he's like, why are you involved in this, right? Because like people already have a hard time understanding why Jim Caviezel's characters in this, and he's like, Bill, like you were a cartel member, you have money, wealth, like you couldn't
But
possibly
even the
imagine.
cartel movies, like if you see like Narcos, they're all about family. Like some of them
sure.
are even like, I wouldn't go that far. Like I do have a line. Like they murdered a lot of people, but I'm just saying, like some of them, not all of them, but they got kids too, and so they're like,
Oh yeah, you know what's so remarkable about that? Like for me, like I've even said this, like the propensity to justify evil works. Like if I became like some powerful person, I could justify doing evil because I'm like, oh, I'm providing for my family. So even if I did things that harmed people along the way, I could justify it because I'm doing a good thing by providing for my family. I think a lot of people justify it that way to their lives, like especially ones that do dishonest work, people that scam people out of their
well,
money, people
nobody
that
thinks
traffic
they're the villain
children,
of their story. Everybody thinks they're
people
the
that
hero.
traffic children. There were so many characters in this movie that play to the roles, like Miss Pageant of Columbia or whatever. Like she tells these children, hey, we're just this
That chick.
agency that hires talent,
Satan.
and we're
Yeah, the devil herself.
the devil herself, dude. Freak, dude. When I see
And
her and she's like looking at all the kids and she's telling them how to like act, like taking
I know I was
pictures and
feeling like my
everything,
stomach was dropping, and I was just like,
dude. But I was also like, maybe Hollywood doesn't want this movie produced because they're like, well, this is a little too similar to what we do to children and child star actors,
Sorry,
mind
I know
you.
I'm laughing because it's true.
Yes, which is why I made this
It's
comment, because I
well,
watched it and I was
it's
like,
the same.
I see
It's the
it.
same
Like
at the. They showed that scene at the end of Toy Story 2 where Prospector was like flirting with the Barbies to get him a job. So it's like, but now it's finally like, oh,
joking openly about the Harvey
yeah,
Weinstein
and it's
thing.
like they already
This
knew,
whole
they know about what it's going on, but they're not doing anything. And
the
now it's
director's
just
chair, or the director's
finally
couch. Yeah,
they're like,
the
getting
casting couch. That's
people
what they call it.
kicked
Yeah.
out of,
Yep.
Hollywood or canceled. And it's like, oh,
Yep.
now they're finally doing something. So, I think that's why they want people to discuss this, because then they can be like,
Bill Camp playing Vampiro was one of the craziest and like emotionally moving characters I've seen in a movie for a long time. He shares his monologue where Jim Caviezel asks him, he's like, why are you invested? So Vampiro basically, he deals in prostitution, drug money, all this stuff, and he chased a lot of this. He went away from prison, comes back, he could still enjoy a really happy and healthy, successful life, successful because he has wealth and fame, but he buys children and gives them their freedom. He literally liberates trafficked children and gives them their freedom. And he tells the story about where after getting out of prison, he was trying to return to this lifestyle that he used to have before getting put into prison. And he goes, there was just something amiss. So he tried to drown it in substances, companionship, shallow companionship, obviously. And he shares the story about how he ends up
with an underage girl,
with a minor, and he's like, he assumed that she was 24 or something like that, or I don't know if the people that brought in it doesn't go into details, but he's like, I was under the impression that she was 24, but then as I'm talking to her, I realized she's not 24, she's not 18, she's 14. And he goes, I saw such sadness in her eyes, and I realized that I was the sadness. That's why I was the sadness in her eyes. And he's like, from that moment on, this is the Schindler's List moment for me, where he's like, what more could I have done? I could have saved so many more people and he like looks at his ring. He's like, I could have done so much more to save people. And Vampiro's like, I've done an unspeakable act, and I'm now going to spend every day for the rest of my life trying to make up for that. And again, he tells that he contemplated suicide, and he's like, I had my 45 to my head, and I was asking if God was there, because if there's ever a time to ask God, it was that moment. Um and whether or not like Bill Camp Vampiro is like a real person, I believe he is, because I don't know who could make up a character like this. That's a crazy thing to be conflicted with, but holy crap, Bill Camp, you knocked it out of the park, because that was the craziest character and monologue. His delivery of it blew me away. So of course I doubt he'll get an award for it, but that was the craziest character motivation I've ever seen, and it was so real, so portrayed by Bill Camp. And Jim Caviezel, of course, his performance knocked it out of the park. Holy crap.
Not his best, but
what is Jim Caviezel's best? Count of Monte Cristo?
Easy, yeah.
Easy. Yeah, I would agree with that, but I'd still
Maybe
say
his
this
best
is up
movie.
there.
I don't know if it's his best performance.
Best
Maybe
movie.
Edmond Dantes.
Edmond Dantes?
I don't need revenge anymore.
Maybe Passion.
Got it all.
I am excited to see him in The Atonement. That'll be fun.
Yeah. Apparently, Jell Gibson's doing like the Resurrection or the Atonement of Christ. I'm like, attaboy, that's something I can get behind.
Yeah.
And again, a sequel to this movie about his operation in Haiti. So I'm super stoked. I'm signed on. Oh, and they're also making a documentary. They're making a documentary about Tim Ballard and all of his missions that he did to save these kids. Put away so many bad guys and has liberated so many children. It's incredible.
Obviously a huge reason too, they're trying to keep it, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, keep this under the rug too. You said for 5 years it took to get this off the ground. You know, you watched the Jeffrey Epstein. Is it Epstein? Is that the guy that had the island on Netflix? That documentary, like he was killed. Well, I mean, he says he committed suicide, but like it was obvious.
Guys,
that
the Futro Hit Movie Gems podcast stance on Jeffrey Epstein is Epstein did not kill himself.
Well, I mean,
and I am not depressed. And if I have 2 bullet wounds in the back of my head, know that I did not kill myself. Just saying.
It was no, but
3-letter agencies that are listening.
The guy that came to check the bodies, like it's impossible for him to have committed suicide in this manner or whatever they said. It was something like that. And so it's like,
he broke his neck from like bed sheets from the ground. Yeah, it's insane.
Anyways, so I mean, clearly was killed.
The guards that were watching him were asleep.
It's just because like
the security footage was erased.
Well, because he had all the information to put away lots of powerful people.
Yeah.
And of course they're gonna end his life. Like, and so like this movie, it's like, oh crap, this could expose if it gets out and people start to do some digging. It's like, oh, there's some big people out there that are gonna get in trouble.
Which is why, again, there are evil forces at work here.
Yes.
Pure evil that are trying to silence this movie, its distribution, its messaging, everything. And it is so pernicious and is so scary. And again,
so I can get behind that. I can get, but I like that. And so that answers my question earlier when I was like, what is kind of what is their goal here? Because at first it sounded like, oh, are they just trying to sell more tickets? Like I didn't think that they had a bad intent, but that's kind of what it sounded like when he was.
No, it's fine because you're like, what good does buying a movie ticket? And you can
that's what I was wondering.
That at its face is shallow, but it's like, where does anything start, right? Like, and I believe, like I said, culture is downstream from politics, or excuse me, politics is downstream from culture. So culture effectuates change. People start caring about things. We put people in positions of power that we care deeply about these issues, and they come in and represent us to deal with the issues that we care about. I mean, like, like look at any politician that like, they just, they get a sense of where the wind is blowing and they tout that nonsense, but it's because they know about what issues people care about. So a lot of the, hot topic, things like abortion and border issues and stuff like that, children trafficking. It's like, if enough people care about this, there's a calamity for it. Like people are shouting like, yo, let's protect children. God's children are not for sale, which is the whole thesis of this movie. And I love that at the end of the movie,
pedophiles,
these children, dude. And we do not need to normalize or feel sympathy for monsters.
Yeah.
Okay?
I saw that on a list of, because I was looking through YouTube and top 10 lists and stuff. And one of them said this movie, and then that you feel so much sympathy for this pedophile. And I'm like, oh no, like
you feel sympathy for him? Oh gosh.
Yeah. Okay. And it was a film about the whole movie you spent with this actor. And I was just like, why are we putting, like, I just think that's the wrong thing to,
wait, people have wrote, like about Bill Camp's character, Vampiro's character?
No.
Sorry.
There's another movie out, and I was watching a YouTube video, and it talked about the top 10 list of most sympathetic characters, and one of them was a character, and he was a pedophile, and you're supposed to feel sympathy for him, and they put it on their list. And I don't know.
Here's the only thing I will give. The only thing I will give. If a monster has these predations and know they have it, seek help, lock yourself up. Do not act on those impulses. That is the only person I will give sympathy for. And they know they're messed up
You're
and
not
they need
supposed
help.
to call them pedophiles. The correct term is minor attracted persons. It's a
Dude,
match.
this is what's so crazy about all this stuff going on right now. Trying to destigmatize hate for people. We live in it's nuts. But in the end, we're trying to have so much compassion for people. It's like it's kind of like the whole like they've done this like Christians, like Catholic Church or whatever. They're all like, well, maybe Hitler will get into heaven or whatever, right? And I'm like, no, stop. Like they're trying to be compassionate. Like, I don't hate anyone. I love everyone. It's like, I hate evil. And there are some people that don't know the difference between the two. We're not friends. How's that? Is that a strong enough stance? Okay. So come for children, whether they're mine or someone else's, you're going to be met with a very strong opposition. Thank you. That's it. There's no conversation to be had outside of that. So if you have these predations, if you are messed up in the head, realize that you need to help and you need to put yourself away. But the fact that we're like, oh, we should just view people as like maybe misunderstood or that, stop. There's none. There's none. So that's my strong stance on all this. And that's what I think that a lot of this movie gets to, because Jim Caviezel pretends to be a pedophile to one of the pedophiles. And he's like, I'm with you. And we just can't be honest about our feelings. And he tells him, he's like, I trusted you. And he's like, never trust a pedophile. And I was like, thank you. That's the thesis from this movie. And they're 100% correct. Because unfortunately, if you have these predations, like you said, Cameron, or was it you, Jordan? They don't believe they're the villain of this story.
Yeah.
No one does. The problem is they don't see their behavior as an issue. They don't see it as a problem. They also view every reaction that a child normally would have as flirtatious, and it's a problem. So it's like, put them away. That's it. There's nothing else to discuss. It's not like, oh, like we just need to have more sympathy for them. Get out of here. Stop. So anyway, that's it. So Cameron, like even the minor attracted persons, it's like pedophile has a stigma to it. Good. Stigmas exist when there's a clear moral line, and I'm not moving it. And I think this movie does a good job at explaining that. I also love the shout outs to God. Like the last criticism I will say that someone gave about this film was like, it's a suffering message. It's suffering a movie, like a good movie, for messaging. And I'm like, I just saw like the hook to go see Elemental.
Have they watched any Disney movie ever?
Have they watched? Thank you. I'm like, you're sacrificing freaking story for messaging. How about representation? Now, again, because you agree with it, you don't see it as a problem. But I was like, my favorite thing, Elemental just came out, this Pixar movie that I'm not going to let my children get anywhere near. They literally, the biggest hook they have for it is like one of the characters has they, them pronouns. And I'm like, that's supposed to convince me as a father to take my 3 kids to go see the movie. And I'm like, Disney, you have so lost the mark.
Again, I'd rather watch Puss in Boots. I'm sorry.
Oh, dude, that's an amazing movie. But also, like, I'm just blown away by that. That is what the hook. Oh. But mind you, they did this for Buzz Lightyear as well. They're like, you should care about this movie. Why? Well, because we have 2 women that prominently kiss, and they're a lesbian couple. I'm like, is that all you could say for yourself? Is the representation that you have? Like, I'm sorry again. Like, why is representation important? Please explain to me. What blows me away. But again, they agree with it, so they have no problem with it, and they still get good ratings. Where movies like this, they're like, well, I don't agree with it, therefore I critique it harsher. Just be fair. That's all I'm saying. So again, the idea that they're so lost. Yeah, I'm like, same with strong women. That's a message they agree with, and I'm so tired of it. And this movie has a strong male lead. That's something I haven't seen for a long time. Not since John Wick, and maybe not since Top Gun Maverick, and maybe not since Mission Impossible. So there's your 4 movies this year, and guess what? They all performed monumentally at the box office. So I hope you're taking notes, Hollywood. Anyway, sorry, I'm done with my messaging, but that was it. That's the key fundamental difference for where we are and where we're headed. And I'm like, they're baffled that movies like this are doing well. And I'm just like, it's not hard. And the last thing I'll say is white saviorism. Like, great. Get someone else to play a Mormon guy that went and saved children as a black person. Who cares? Make it a lesbian with pink hair. I don't know how she would have fared in like South American countries. She would have stuck out like a sore thumb. But I don't know. Like, anyway, just I'm like, I get that representation is the most important thing to you, and you have an issue that it's a white man saving
No,
children.
they just passed that law though
Crazy.
now, Ty. Do you see that? Like that everybody's going to be treated equal or whatever now. I forget what it's called.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
for-
So
that's for
affirmative
colleges.
action. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
College
college.
acceptances. Yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
No, but I mean, these are issues that exist, right? And it's crazy that you're like, yeah, discrimination, if it's helping minorities that we care about, like it's a good thing. And it's like, I don't know, is it doing more good than harm? I don't know. I'm willing to ask the question and even entertain the idea, but we can't have these conversations because they're nuanced and they're complicated, and people might get the wrong idea. Some people might end up being racist. Some people might end up bigoted. And it's like, okay, but we need to flesh these ideas out. Otherwise, the world's never going to change. It's never going to better. We're never going to get anywhere.
We usually try to keep these podcasts lighter, so
lighthearted. So I hope, listeners, I just want to say, in the end, please go see this film. I need to go see it again, and it's gonna pain me to see it again. I'm gonna go take my wife to go see it.
I try to make this more of a family-friendly pod, so I apologize for this episode.
Put a disclaimer at the beginning of this episode. I think that's totally warranted. Just say, warning, this movie
you already
delves
did.
into topic.
Yeah.
Okay, at the very beginning. Okay, good. But yeah, I can't stress this enough. But again, this movie does it in a way that isn't exploitative. And it definitely, like Cameron said, makes me squirm at times. It made me cry at times. It made me laugh out loud sometimes. This movie is a lot of things. So
yeah, definitely do recommend. I
recommend
won't be seeing it again, but
yeah, it's kind of like Schindler's List. You know, you watch such a painful movie, you're like, I don't know why I would ever subject myself to it again, but I'll never forget the lessons I learned watching it.
I've seen it twice.
Schindler's List?
At least, yeah.
Well, that's because you wanted to see if Cameron has a soul, and it turns out Cameron doesn't. So
yeah.
How about you guys? Like, not that it matters, but like, did you guys get it at all emotional during any part of this movie?
Of course.
I did get emotional. I didn't cry, but
I cried.
So again, just reinforcing the idea Cameron does not have a soul. That's okay.
Yeah. But I cried in her.
because it's literally you.
Because the divorce was a little too relatable.
Oh, Karen, I'm sorry, man. But sorry, I was laughing. It just made me laugh when you're like her, because all I could think of was like Teddy breaking up with his computer.
And I'm like,
sorry. But yeah, I'm shallowy. Yeah, that's a shallow read.
I cried at the part when he was writing the letter to his ex-wife. I thought that was really cool.
No. Oh, wait, of Sound of Freedom?
No, what?
Oh,
no.
Okay. You're talking about her again. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Of when he wrote the letter to his ex-wife, which is he was essentially writing the letter to the director of Lost in Translation, just essentially telling her like I love you, you'll always be a part of me, and for that I'm forever grateful, like your friend till the end. And I'm just like, yeah, it's too good. But so again, to what we've seen lately.
Last thing. Yeah, let's get into one last thing too. I love like
hide your wife, hide your kids.
The last thing, about the Sound of Freedom, the song that the kids sing is super harrowing and heartbreaking. So that is an incredible moment where he's like, you see all the kids elated. And again, that's not to downplay the trauma that they're going to experience and the hardships that they have ahead. But at that moment when they realize they're saved is heartbreaking in one way, and also immensely what a miracle. Inspiring. Yeah. So anyway, that's the last thing I have to say about it. So please go see this film. Can't stress that enough. So okay, guys, what else have you been seeing? On a lighter note, this is a movie podcast after all. We're not trying to effectuate change here, guys. Guys, I bought my ticket to go see Mission Impossible 7. I gotta go see it in theaters.
Cameron and I did a double feature. We were just trying to let's watch something that'll put us in a better mood.
So no spoilers, okay?
And
but you guys like it?
And we got scammed. We got scammed because because it got released on Tuesday. It's technically opening weekend, so on $5 Tuesday it was $15. I was like,
Snap. Snap. You
Uh,
guys got played, suck
we
ass.
were already at the theater, so we're like, F it.
Right.
Just
Okay,
paid.
so without any spoilers, where does it rank as far as Mission Impossible movies? Give me your top 3
I
Mission
think it's
Impossible
number
movies.
two.
I think
right?
it's my second or third favorite.
Second or third favorite?
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
dude,
Ghost
yes.
Protocol for me, it doesn't like nothing competes with Ghost Protocol. The fourth one, the
Even the
first
first one.
Yeah, dude. Or even the third one. I love the third one
yeah, I think
personally.
for me,
Third
I
is like
think
top
it
though.
goes Ghost Protocol,
That's awesome.
and
Okay.
then maybe this one, and
Wow.
and then probably the third one.
And I really liked Fallout, by the way. I thought Fallout was really
I can't
fun.
really remember Fallout. Is that the one? Which one's the plane and which one's
It's the one with Henry
crap?
Cavill. Henry Cavill is like the Superman man.
Oh yeah, and he does
Whatever.
the arm.
He does the arm cock. The bathroom fight is like one of my favorite scenes of all time.
That was
Well,
a
I
cool
mean, like
scene.
it's up there for action scenes. It is so fun
That
to
kind of
watch.
I just think of every that blends together for Man from Uncle for me. I'm like, is that the same movie?
Oh yeah, that's
Exactly.
yeah. They're
Blends
very
because
similar.
it's mush.
Dude, Jordan, don't you dare come for my movie. Man from Uncle is my top 100. Stop it.
Yeah,
It should be in yours as well.
it's fantastic, Guy Ritchie. But
Such a great
Wrath of
movie.
Man's in my top 100.
anyway, the best one is Gentlemen. Come on, you guys are misguided. Anyway, I've just been on that Bachelor grind.
I like Snatch. Sorry.
Yeah.
Snatch is great. It's also my top 100. I'm just been on that
That's
Bachelor
awesome.
grind, except for movie wise, and
Yeah.
so I've had so much free time, and I was sick, so I just watched a million movies. So I watched The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Yo, what'd you
Oh,
think?
gosh.
Ty was the one that recommended it to me, and then I pushed it on Cameron. I'm like, Cameron, you
Oh,
have to
really?
watch
See,
this.
I wasn't sure if you'd seen it. Yeah, I rather liked it. Jude Law and Matt Damon. It's a very interesting movie. It's very interesting to think of Matt
I
Damon
never
because
wa-
now he's so famous. It's like, but this is like when it was kind of risky for him to do a movie like that.
I always love how
don't know.
you do such soft recommendations. Like I'm like, I'll put it on the list, and then finally when I got to it, I'm like, why the crap didn't you recommend it harder? But I'm like, glad you didn't because it made it better. So it's
There's
like
something
hard to
about
know.
I know you guys well enough to be like, I just drop hints and I know you're gonna like it. And I love that we've all seen it now. That was a really good movie.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think
So many movies that kind of
Jordan
imitate
knows
that.
I love anything sociopath or psychopath. So
Narcissistic. Yeah.
yeah,
He's
just
he's
anything
great.
to get anything to get in the
Character.
mind of them. Yeah, I just think like
Catch Me If You
character-
Can meets like oh, I can't think of the other one, but yeah, Catch Me If You Can meets like a serial killer thing.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
right, yeah.
And he's just kind of like figuring out. Oh, Jordan, what did I compare it to?
I
I
can't
said
remember.
Catch Me If You Can mixed with something else.
Oh, see, yeah, we
Girl
both
with
thought
dragon
of Catch Me If You
tattoo.
Can.
I don't know.
No.
Yeah, that could work. It's definitely not as dark as Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, but it does have like
Seven?
for a movie that came out like 2000s. It definitely
Yeah,
has
these were
dark.
some of my reactions to it. I said,
Good Will Hunting, maybe.
I said,
it's like Good Will Hunting
Oh,
after
yeah.
he
Because
leaves.
he's wicked. He's wicked
He's
smart.
wicked smart.
I
He
was
goes
like-
off and lives this lifestyle after he leaves.
yeah, these were these were the sporadic texts I sent to Jordan at like 11 p.m. I was like,
I
he
love-
killed him. What the fudge? I was like, this is like Bernie meets Catch Me If You Can.
Bernie.
Yeah,
Bernie.
and then
That's
because of
great.
like
It
the,
is,
the
that's a good
fake-
comparison.
the
Bernie,
faking
I
of
love
like
it.
that he's still alive, and then I was like, homie needs to be put in an institution ASAP. I was like,
Oh.
opening a man you've murdered's Christmas present is deranged. I was like, homie is a serial killer. I was like, I bet my life he's gay, and I was like, what an ending, what a movie.
Yeah, it turns out
Well,
he was gay.
Well, that's
For
See,
Pete's
that's
sake,
also
debatable.
me and Jordan were talking about it. We think he's just like curious
Loved.
and just like
No-
honestly,
Oh.
he just cares about being like
Loved. I think
Yeah.
he's just so desperate for love. I honestly don't think it has anything to do with gay. I think he just like so badly wants what Jude Law has. He just like envies
Yeah,
that.
he
life
wanted
in him.
he coveted like his life. He wanted to be him. You know?
Exactly.
I also think
Yeah.
similar. I think he also just kind of associated with more of the gay like crowd, especially during that time when they were much more like suppressed and not allowed to kind of be outspoken about it.
Mm,
Yeah.
So I think because of like his dark secrets of like murdering people, I think he just connected with them like we both have something we're hiding. And that dude thought
Mm.
like, oh, we're both homosexual. And he's like, I murder people. And he's like, well, that was not the direction I thought this was going. I thought we were like feeling each other. But that's why I was like, I was really hoping that that musician, that gay musician was not gonna hook up with. I was like, don't. And then when he gets on the boat with him, I'm like, you're dead, bro.
You're dead.
Well, and
see, and
we
I
had
just
a-
think,
okay, go.
I was just saying,
Mr.
I think-
Ripley.
I just think that's one of the most horrific and perfect endings to a film. Just like him crying, choking him out while him telling him like good things about him. Because like he doesn't believe there's anything like redeemable about himself, and a person's telling him about like the redeemable qualities while the dude murders him, and he's crying because he's like, I don't want to do this, but he's like, he feels so obsessed to complete and like keep the lie that he's willing to do anything for it, which is insane.
Yeah, and I love we had a
Crazy.
theory that that girl that washed up on the shore, he had to have killed her, right? So maybe it wasn't, because we were debating whether or not
The guy was his first kill.
it was his first kill, which
Because
Oh,
it looked
interesting.
accidental, but then
Because
he was
it- yeah.
way too natural. The moment it happened, he's like, all right, I can't bet I know what to do. I'm like, hey, yo, this is your first murder?
yeah,
like,
because the
you can
girl
watch
that
a
showed up,
serial killer
like,
movies like
he-
me.
and it would make sense why he killed her, because she was in the way essentially of their
Yep.
perfect dynamic.
And ruining
100%.
like his, because he wanted that image of him. It's kind of similar to almost like Perfect Blue. It's like, this is not the life you want to live. I'm going to kill anyone that's preventing you from living the life you should be living. So this
Wait,
is going to
Perfect- that's not deep. Are you, I probably
Okay, so then
Deep Blue,
that's
a shark
also-
movie. Yeah,
that
what's
goes
the
into
Perfect Blue?
so
Cameron's
that, so then,
next movie, yeah.
yeah, well, so
Oh,
and then
okay.
I also
Perfect Blue.
saw
me look
We
this
Bought a
up.
Zoo. Wow, I was so impressed.
Are you
Like,
on a Matt
okay,
Damon kick real quick? Is that what it is or not?
Yeah,
Are you just
I was.
watching? Okay.
I was, and then I was like, oh
I'm
my
a sucker
God.
for that movie. I love
That
that movie.
movie
People are like,
is-
it's cheesy, it's corny. I loved it. Hook,
It's-
line, and sinker. It's a beautiful film.
For
It's like
me,
Pursuit of
it just-
Happiness.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just kind of like
beautiful.
one of my guilty pleasure, like perfect. And I also just think the music in it by Jonesy is so good.
Such
and
a
then,
sweet movie.
I also really loved like the message of it. I just felt like the whole entire message was like, it only takes like 20 seconds of courage sometimes to change, like
Oh,
moments. can
Perfect
change
Blue's
your
the
life.
Great
anime.
line.
Sorry, I just looked.
Yeah.
It's the anime
and
you were
then-
telling me about. Yeah.
And then I rewatched I rewatched Kung Fu Panda 1, 2, and 3 because I hadn't seen 3, and then I'd seen so many people saying like the best
Oh.
animated movies they'd ever seen was like Panda,
3
like
is
the second and
hilarious.
third, and I was like, wow. So I watched them all back to back to back while I was sick, and I mean, first one easily the best in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think it's like
for
9
sure.
out of 10, and then I think the second one is also great, 8 out of 10. And then the third one I think has like some really good parts. Maybe it was just from watching it back to back to back that I was like, this is kind of the same movie, just
Same.
slightly
Oh,
altered.
they all are the
And
same.
so
same,
it was
yeah.
like a 7 for me. It was still really
Yeah.
enjoyable, but I'm like,
it's called
I
the
feel
law
like
of
this is-
diminishing
this-
returns, Cameron.
Yeah, I'm like,
You literally just played out
They're
like
just milking it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, but I
They're
do think
milking this
I
panda,
do think
baby.
it's cool because it actually one of my teachers actually in school talked about how it actually is teaching the 3 lessons of kung fu or something. He was saying is like, one is to the master of self, which is the first movie.
Oh,
And
that's
then
cool.
2 is the master of one's environment, which is the second movie where he's able to manipulate the environment. And then the third one is to be able to teach mastery of self and environment. So essentially him teaching the village, which I
Oh,
thought
that's
was
really
really
cool.
cool of how it illustrates all the 3 lessons of kung fu into each of the movies, which I thought was just like a really cool caveat.
That is cool. I love that.
But
It's like, hey, we had a structure to these 3 movies, all right? There's a reason for them. Not just the money.
I
And
love
then
when people like break down things on YouTube. You're like, oh, this I don't know if they're just making it sound a million times smarter than it actually is, or if it actually is
Yeah,
smart.
the filmmakers are like, why did we think of that? Yeah, that's what we meant.
Yeah.
that he gets
That's,
it.
yeah, he knows what I'm trying to do.
Yeah,
But then-
he gets what I'm all about.
And then also just to clarify, Talented Mr. Ripley, I gave a 9 out of 10, and then We Bought a
Yeah.
Zoo, gave it a 10 out of 10 and added to my top 100.
Oh, awesome. Dude, I
Talented
love
Mr.
Your
that.
top
Ripley-
100 is growing big.
Talented
Yeah.
Mr. Ripley, I have already gotten rid of some. Talented Mr. Ripley was like borderline top 100. I probably won't add it to my All American Rejects, which is like the ones that just missed out on the
missed out.
top 100 or were in the top 100, got kicked out. And then I watched Perfect Blue. I finally finished it. It was funny because the night I was watching with Jordan was kind of one of the nights that like
Did you watch it too, Jordan? Sorry.
Oh yeah, I've seen it many
Okay.
times.
Jordan
Oh,
showed it to
interesting.
me. Jordan showed it to me and Grant, and then I had to walk out middle of it because me and Kels were like essentially starting our divorce. So but then so rewatching, I was like, man, I kind of have bad memories associated with this movie. But then I
am
just like
bad. Oh, man.
and so I just started kind of where I think I remember.
And I was so bummed too, because you were like, this is like the perfect movie for you.
Yeah, and so
Like-
and just kind of because of similar to The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, there because of how much like I felt, I really didn't want to like this movie, but it's one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. I hate
Well,
how
Kristen Christopher
I
Nolan
hate how
is a
good it
huge
is.
fan. You can totally see Inception from this.
This also reminded me so
Oh,
much of Enemy.
interesting.
Enemy, I hated, and then I
Yeah.
watched 2 explainer videos, and I was like, that might have just been one of the greatest films I've ever seen. And similar to Perfect Blue, well, one I watched one to just explain what happened because I was like, I don't understand because it plays with your mind. It's like Memento having a child with a serial killer movie, and I was like, what is fudge is going on? I'm so confused. And in the way he does it too is so seamless that I'm like questioning my own reality. And it was like 1 a.m. and I'm
Those
like,
cuts are amazing.
I'm like, my
She's
brain
like,
is bleeding internally. I'm trying to
what
figure
do
out
they
what's going
say?
on.
You got associate disorder, and then she's like,
Yeah,
and cut.
Yeah, because she's an actress, and then it's like she's actually like potentially having dissociative identity crisis, but then it's like she's
Oh,
playing a role as someone like that,
And so
but
she doesn't know
it
what's
keeps
real.
and it just keeps
oh,
cutting between like
jeez.
her home life, acting, and I'm like, I can't understand what's
And
going
because
on.
she's famous, Ty, she's got stalkers and stuff. And so there are people writing about her life, and she's like living vicariously through.
And so she's trying to remember if she actually did these things or people are just made these things up. And she's like, did I go to the grocery
Oh,
store today?
wow.
Yeah,
That sounds
it's a
very
mess.
compelling.
Oh,
And
it's
so
Yeah.
I was like,
amazing.
holy
Okay.
shiz.
Is
And like,
it painful though? Is this movie like
It's like Enemy. It
dark?
does have a lot,
Okay.
unfortunately, of
Yeah.
adult
Okay.
themes.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
Yeah. But
Wonder if they
yeah,
could get that Vid Angel or something.
yeah,
um
VidAngel needs to get on top of that.
see that's why Jordan,
Oh.
if they would have just done different angles and like not shown it, but given
Yeah.
it, like audio, like for me it would be a perfect fit. It would probably be my top 25. But just because it didn't, even though it's animated, like it was just like and that's why I
Yeah.
didn't want to like it. But
I get it. It's the same with Enemy. Like I'd love to put that in my top 100, but I don't because yeah, it's just like I don't know who I can recommend this to.
yeah,
Right. Right. It
But
is.
yeah,
It's unfortunate, but
you
yeah,
should check it out.
I like what you said though, Cameron, about like showing restraint because I think it's easy just to put some evil predation on screen and be like, yeah, look how horrific
Yeah.
and look how close we mimicked evil. And it's like sometimes it takes restraint and skill to know when not to.
Prisoners, I feel like is a perfect example of that.
That-
So many times they didn't
Thank
show
you.
the
That-
actual violence,
Yes.
but you just get shots of the outside and you hear
Or
screams
even
or
just
something.
or even a great example is the hole
Eye
of
hole.
light that that he can see through
Yeah,
and you
the
just
little
see
And you
a
and you
tiny
you
glimpse
see
of-
everything. You see everything. You see his bloodied, like dry blood on his like around his eye.
Less
his
is
eye
more.
completely red.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh.
That's
it's the Jaws shark, you know.
I was just thinking that as I was watching this movie,
Yeah.
it's Freedom, and I just was thinking, oh, if Denny had directed this, like it's basically Prisoners, like that's what you get out of it. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
True.
A really
But-
powerful movie, yeah.
But yeah, so Perfect
That's
Blue,
interesting.
I
Yeah,
mean,
Prisoners meets Taken.
Yeah.
It's
So,
like more
I
of
mean,
almost of an action thriller, yeah.
yeah,
But,
Perfect Blue. So it sadly it's a
Perfect
9
Blue.
out of 10 and it made my top 100 and it's like in my 60s.
Let me say sadly.
Sadly,
It's
I'm
just
sorry
like-
to report.
It's
I'm
just
sorry,
like
all the
it's just
people
like
I've
The
let
Shining
down.
for me. The Shining, The Shining, I didn't want to be good so bad, and then I'm just like, this is so freaking good.
This
Same
won't
with-
Oh, The Shining. That's really funny. I didn't know that.
this won't help Ty you want to watch it, but Darren Aronofsky takes a lot of inspiration from this movie. just so you know.
But no, honestly, you had me at Christopher Nolan because I was curious when you said, but
Yeah.
did Christopher Nolan actually mention by name this movie or not?
No, he's just
okay.
some people have like compared his shots to
Two.
and then they've
this
also
is eerily similar to Memento.
it's so yeah. I
Eerily,
thought
like-
a lot like Inception.
Like there was
as well,
moments
but-
where I was like, "Yo, did
Well-
Christopher Nolan just copy and paste the scene?"
but she's also dreaming a lot too, so it's like there's
Inception. It's like
yeah.
Inception, Memento. Like it's wild. Like there's just so much that happens, and like you have to watch YouTube videos to explain it because that's I was explaining certain things to Jordan that he was
Or-
like,
or
I
just-
didn't even know that.
or yeah,
He's
or
watched
just
it,
talk
like
to somebody.
4 times.
Yeah.
Like
Mm.
it's insane. There's just so much complexity to this,
Mm.
and like there's scenes that like are horrifying. Like,
Mm.
and it's. I mean, I don't even. I could talk about it forever on how
Yeah,
much
I would
It's
love to
interesting. I've never even
dive
thought of it,
into
but
it.
like maybe the fact that it's animated helps in some ways and probably doesn't help in others.
Absolutely.
You know,
I think it helps. It
kind of like
helps-
a different
like-
form of making a film.
yeah. I
about
think the graphic
like that.
part of it, of like with
Mm.
like the part, helped me a little bit just because I was like, okay, this is just like cartoonish. But I mean the like violent, I was like, holy shit. Like
Mm.
the way screwdrivers are used in this movie, holy fudge.
Oh my gosh.
I'm never gonna look at a screwdriver the same. But then
Yikes.
and then I watched a film actually directed by Chris Evans. It was like on some dude that I really like a lot of his recommendations for like movies because he had like Zodiac and stuff like that for his like favorite thrillers. He had this on like his favorite
Cameron's
movie
like, that's my favorite movie.
he had this on his favorite
You
movie.
like Zodiac? Tell me more. What about
I
your
know
movie
he had his favorite
recommendations?
movies about like love, and one of them was Before We Go, which stars Chris Evans and Alice Eve and Emma Fitzpatrick. And I don't know how I feel about it. I give it like a 6 out of 10. I just thought the messages were really weird in it. For me, it was just such a like a worldly view of love because essentially it's like this girl who she's in New York, missed the train, spends the night stuck in like around, and Chris Evans is like a musician who was like practicing at the train station. So he looks like homeless at first. You're kind of like, is this guy homeless? But and
Get
then
away from me. Spray him with
and,
mace.
and then the girl like dropped her phone, broke, and then she has no money because her purse got lifted, and so like Chris Evans is essentially trying to help her get home. You end up finding out that she's trying to get home to her husband, and she's like, I need to beat him home, and so you assume like, oh, she's having an affair, and then you find out that she's not having an affair, that her husband's having an affair, and she put like a letter on the bed with the rings and said like, I want a divorce, essentially, and be like, I know this has been going on forever, but he was supposed to go to Atlanta that night and be with the girl because he was like gonna have an affair, but then he like told the girl, I'm not going anymore, and chose to come back to her. And so she was like, oh my gosh, he's like, he chose me over her. So she wanted to get back to the place to like not essentially expose him and divorce him. And then but then there's like obviously hecka romance between her and Chris Evans, and then but Chris Evans also has a girl he's still not over, and then they meet her. Anyway, they spend this like super romantic night together, like they kiss a couple times, and then like essentially the message of it was that like they love each other, but like they love each other to let each other go back on their paths with the other people. And I was just like,
Sounds like Me Before You or whatever, except
no, but
this
it
is
was
about
weird because
death
like
as opposed to another
it was
lover.
because like
No.
he said goodbye for her to go back to her husband who has been cheating on her, and they like smooched like a really romantic smooch for them to separate. I'm like, this is really weird vibes. I'm like, I don't think you guys understand how like a marriage works. I'm like, you don't have friends who help you get back into your marriage by like making out. I was like, interesting messages, but
Thank you for letting me explore
It-
that part of myself.
it's
To
like
realize I didn't want to miss out on it after all. It's like,
yeah.
oh,
is
brother.
it called The
I have to
Exchange?
cheat on my wife to know that I loved her more as a result, right?
I know,
It
and that's
makes
what
me
I was
so
like. I was
mad.
like, is there
Bull
I don't know,
crap.
for me? I'm just like,
Oh, Extract. It reminds me of Extract. Like I love that movie. I
Oh,
watched it
I
again
thought
with my
you meant
wife.
Extraction. Sorry, I was like, wait,
No,
what?
but
no.
Extract.
Extract,
It's like
yes.
terrible message, but I love
Yes.
it so much. It's,
Yeah, I don't
But
know why you
yeah,
love that movie.
it was okay. I think there was a lot of cool cinematography, and I think the performances are pretty good and realistic. But I don't know, it just kind of made me feel like, wow, a lot of the love in the world is depressing.
my wife and
So
I
like,
only rewatched one movie together so far, and it was Extract Time.
crazy.
Rewatched? Like you made her watch it again?
Well, no, she wanted to. She was like, okay.
And then I watched Mission
Okay, it sounds like she
Impossible.
really wanted to watch it. You want
What'd
to
you
watch
watch,
Extraction?
Cameron?
Okay.
And watched Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 with Jordan because I didn't know it was a Part 1.
Why do they have to
So
always do these part 1s and 2s? Just make
hey,
a
I have no
movie.
problem with it. Stop it.
No,
No,
I'm
it's totally
I'm fine with them making another movie, but like, just wrap this one up, then make another movie. Like,
Well,
see,
sometimes it's fun with a
I'm
narrative
all
that
about it. I'm
expands.
all about it.
Yeah,
really?
Harry
Because
Potter. Harry Potter was a perfect example. That people are like, it's just a cash grab. I'm like, they
No,
could
I don't
get
care about.
more into the
I'm
book.
not saying
Okay.
a cash grab. I'm just saying I just like to be a complete story because, like you just said, this last one of the Harry Potters are my least
spider.
favorite because it's just like it's too long.
Well,
As
what about
I do
Dune? Did you
understand that,
like
but
Dune at all? Or are you upset that it's a
I
two-parter?
am kind of upset it's a two-parter. Like
see,
What
I
about
am.
Titanic? It's 2 VHSs, right?
I don't know. Like
see,
I
No, I'm kidding.
I
It's
know I'm
one
gonna
long movie.
love but of all Denny's films, that's my least favorite movie of his.
So it's funny that you say
really?
that because I agree with you. I will credit that watching a film as a whole set needs to be compelling, right? And because like there's a difference between TV and movies, right? It's a different medium because you have 90 minutes to tell your story to 3 hours, right? Unless you're
Yeah.
crazy and you want to do a 4-hour movie, but whatever. It's like it has to be told within this window and you have to cut stuff out. But it's like if you do 2 parts, you can get more of the story and the grander scope of it. Because to me, Dune shouldn't be told in one movie. They've tried
shouldn't.
that
No,
and it failed. Yeah. So
yeah.
it's like, so whether you make it a trilogy or 2 movies back to back, I'm fine with, honestly,
I-
personally.
yeah.
And Jordan, I do get your point. For
But
me,
I agree
also,
that one movie on its own shouldn't stand, but it's like, but they understand that they're going to make 2 parts. I'm fine with that.
The problem is I'm not going to
Yeah.
see him back to back, and so that's why I'm just kind of bummed because
Oh, okay. But I mean, you'll rewatch it. At least I do. Like, I'm
I
going to rewatch Dune
don't,
and then
but
go see this.
See, well, for me,
You're like,
it's,
oh, who are these characters again?
see, Jordan, for me, it's the same thing with, I feel like, Lord of the Rings. I'm like, Lord of the Rings wouldn't be the trilogy it is today if it was just like 2 really long movies or something like that.
well, yeah,
And so,
but those movies stand alone really well. Like I can
To be
watch just
fair,
part
yes.
2, or I can
Yes.
just
I
watch
don't know about
3.
the
And I
second one
agree.
standing alone as much.
I think it totally does.
No,
It
to
wraps
be
it up
fair-
perfectly after that
To be fair,
war.
Cameron, I will say I watched the sequel, Lord of the Rings and the Two Towers first, and I was not lost in the least
Yeah,
bit.
I
I'm
watched the
not
Two
kidding.
Towers as well first.
So I actually encourage you, Cameron, to watch it. Try to vacate your mind from everything you understand. They do such a good job at establishing characters, their motivations, and they have complete arcs in the movie. Now, that being said, that's why good TV, every episode is like not like necessarily just a cliffhanger. Like watch Breaking
Yeah.
Bad. The reason it's so binge worthy is because every
It was
episode,
designed for
the
TV,
way,
not for Netflix.
yes, and every episode has a character arc, and it's leading to the overall character arc. It's almost like when you watch like
Almost
no
like
one
Game
laid
of
down
Thrones.
I'm sure it is, but
You
see,
need to watch
good
those,
storytellers like Peter Vince Gilligan and
Yeah,
is it
Vince
Peter
Gilligan.
Gold?
Well, yeah, but I think Vince is the main dude.
Let's credit Vince more than I'm fine with that. No, but like the way they tell stories with Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, like it tells a narrative structure. So I agree with you, Jordan, that there are movies that suffer because they, like, I will say Dune suffered because it ends at this moment where I'm like, there's not enough development that warrants me to be like, okay, I'm satisfied, because I'm like very dissatisfied, but I'm like, I'm fine giving them the benefit of the doubt, saying that they told us it was going to be part 1. See, that's why a lot of people are
But we
upset
will
about
be talking
Across
about
the
Dune
Spider-Verse.
Part 2 when it comes out, 100%.
Oh, for sure. And I will
Anything Denny
rewatch the first
touches,
one.
I will
Yes,
talk
yes.
about.
I will rewatch part 1 before seeing part 2 so I can have it fresh. But then, like, it's funny that because, like, I will say Across the Spider-Verse, one of the biggest complaints, people were like, I didn't know this would be such a cliffhanger, and it was going to be
Uncultured swine.
Yeah. And see, to me, I was like, I anticipated this. I'm like, there's no way they're going to take one of the most popular cartoons that came out last year and just make one more movie, one off of it. I knew that we're going to make a sequel. I didn't know it would be such a cliffhanger, like, Empire Strikes Back level, where it's like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, it's now. But again, on its own, see, that's why I still like the first one more. It has a better structure,
Yeah,
in my
Cameron.
opinion. No, but Cameron, I'm willing to concede that Miles does learn his moment where he's like, I'm going to do my own thing. That is a character arc. So I agree. But to me, it was just much stronger watching him trying to aspire to be Spider-Man, but then he learned, like, he does have that in him, like the ability, a leap of faith, or what if you, and that's literally the theme of the movie that's being told at the beginning and end. How will I know if I'm ready? It's a leap of faith. He literally jumps off a building that could arguably kill him if he's not ready. It's a powerful moment. Anyway, this is great because he's telling the psychopathic Spider-Man Dracula guy, yeah, I'm not going to believe this nonsense that you're touting. I'm choosing my own path, and that's a remarkable thing. So I do need to re-see it though, rewatch it, because I agree, Cameron.
But that's what you could, and that's even you
it's
could,
hard.
for me,
not
just
easy.
because you could potentially argue that Gwen herself completes the full like the movie arc, because
she has an arc too, yes, and it's powerful. I liked her arc.
Just
I thought it was
because,
good.
like, I think hers adds perfectly to the overall plot going into the third one, because then it's like in the beginning she's like, oh, I'm with my dad, this is the relationship, and then it's like at the end she realizes my dad's still alive, my canon event didn't happen, and my reality's still here.
I just have one quick plot point about this. Like, this bothers me because every time they mention the canon event, it's like, again, is there no telling that he could later become a police officer and die at a later date?
No, see, but a really interesting theory that I really love.
Or he was a policeman and he's no longer a policeman and still dies. It just bothers me that it was so flimsy.
What's really interesting is theory I heard about it is that that the canon event, or like the reality it collapsing on itself, is just Spot, because
interesting.
Because Spot was the one, Miguel went to a universe where he would be happy. And so in the beginning, he says, I want to make sure that you're not happy, Miles. Later, he says, I'm going to make sure that Spider-Man, I'm going to take everything away from Spider-Man because you took everything away from me. And they said, who are you talking to? Me? And he goes, and then that's why they're like, oh, like, which one are you talking to? He's
That
talking
would be
about all of
interesting.
them. And so he's taking away because he sees Miguel in a reality, in a universe where he's happy. And he's like, no, that's not how it works. You don't just get to go to
When
a
we were
universe
at the
where
theater, Ty, yesterday, yesterday,
Yeah.
Cameron's like, I want to see Spider-Man again.
It's
I
so
was
good.
like,
I
oh
agree
my
that it is
gosh.
one of the most compelling animated movies and movies in spite
Yeah.
of animation, but the animation enhances it with the version of storytelling. Love it. I agree, but it's hard for me. And I agree with you, Jordan, that narratively it may suffer, but I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, like for me, Kill Bill is my favorite example of this. I consider The Bloody Affair
And see,
as one
that's why
movie.
that's my
Cheating.
Because people
least
are like, I
favorite.
like Kill Bill 1 more than
'Cause
Kill Bill
it's
2. I'm like,
cheating.
it's one
Well,
movie, bro.
that's
It's
why I
Kill
have a
Bill
hard
Volume 1 and
time
Volume. Yeah.
as that making that movie my favorite
Yeah.
of Quentin's movies, because I want just I don't want two parts. I want a movie. Like
Yeah.
But you don't have to worry
but don't
about
worry,
it.
they cut it. They cut it. It is a 4-hour
movie.
movie. You can literally buy it as one movie. Just saying.
I know, but like still, like I just have this weird thing about like I just want to be able to enjoy it, sit
Dude,
through one.
Tarantino was doing multiverse, by the way, and everything that
Yeah.
Marvel's copied, they all copied Tarantino. Just saying,
What-
he has
did you-
Apple cigarettes, he has all the things that are like
Yeah.
Tarantino's movies are literally interconnected. I'm just saying he was cool before superheroes. I'm just saying.
Do you
Everyone
have
should know that.
any more, Cameron, really quick?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
the
other
last
movies.
one I watched is the Batman, the Doom that came to Gotham. I think Jordan just bought.
Is it a cartoon?
Or no, actually, I think it was a new one
Animated?
on HBO Max. But yeah, it was a cartoon one.
Animated.
And it was dark as shiz. It's essentially like
They're
Batman
dark.
during the
Definitely.
time of like the Industrial Revolution, and it's like a super interesting where I mean, it's dark as shiz.
Is it
It's essentially-
steampunk?
It's just,
I don't know why I'm thinking steampunk.
no, it's like the
Industrial
Industrial Revolution and
I
like
think of
like
smokestacks.
like a demonic cult that is like sacrificing. Like it's insane. I was like, what
That
the
sounds
fuck?
dark.
But Jordan,
dude.
you need to watch one about it's called Gotham by Gaslight. I mentioned to you before.
Oh, that's right. I need to.
It's about like Jack the Ripper. Like that is the villain. It's Jack the Ripper. It's insane.
Oh, you said that. That's right. I'll put it on my bucket list. All
I'm
right.
telling you, you need to watch it. It's one that I was like,
Did you like Batman or
oh,
not? Did you like Batman or not?
the
Me?
Batman.
Yeah, the Batman, the
See, that's
Robert
why
Pattinson. You need to watch that again because
that's what I was actually going to
yeah.
start it tonight. Instead I started the
Yes.
Lego Batman movie again.
Oh, so good. Love
But
it.
I was like, I
You
need
need
to
to give
watch it
Batman
again
another
just because
shake.
I was so disappointed in it. Just because I mean, I'm
You guys built some
tell,
crazy. Yes.
a very big Batman fan.
I know. You keep
and-
pointing to your shirt. What is that, Karen? Did you make
it's
that?
all the different Batman logos. over the years.
Yes,
Where did you get
beautiful.
that Batman shirt? I love it. That's
And
super
also
cool.
I have the Batman shirt
Is this what
from the movie that I don't love.
Is this what the sorry, I don't want to make
What
a
are you
joke
saying?
at your expense. I was gonna
About,
say
about being a bachelor.
Yeah, I actually
gonna
thought
say,
about that too.
Newfound Bachelor, you're like, I gotta buy these t-shirts because they will comfort me. I'm sorry, I love you to death, but sorry.
Let me hit up my list really quick while
yeah, let's hear your list, Jordan.
So Cameron didn't want to watch Sin City with me, so I watched it and it's amazing. And you're crazy,
good
Cameron,
move,
for not
dude.
watching it. It's a
Real quick,
masterpiece.
favorite line, dude. You're making a big mistake. Yeah, you're making a mistake too. You forgot to flush.
You forgot to flush. He shoves his face in the toilet.
So good,
Heck
dude.
yes, it
One of
is
my
so
favorite
awesome. I guess I'm gonna have to
Whoa,
just-
Jordan! It's male toxicity. Just acknowledge it.
whatever. I'm just gonna have to like make us do it on the pod for Cameron to watch it.
Oh
And
yeah.
then,
It just looks so grungy, and I hate everything. It's like chicken.
grungy.
It's like chicken or chicken.
Oh,
Run
but
to me.
Cameron, real quick, there is a very prominent serial killer played by one Elijah Wood. I think you would enjoy it.
he is amazing.
His
He's
whole
like
Bruce
he's like,
Willis's arc.
how did you
with
get behind
Elijah
me?
Wood. Yeah.
Nobody can sneak up on me. So fetching good.
Yeah,
Oh,
you'll
yeah, and-
probably like. There's 2 serial killers actually, so
Yeah,
You'll
it's
like it.
it's so freaking good. Okay, and then I watched The Return of the Living Dead again for the bazillionth time because it's amazing and great practical effects. And then I watched like the behind the scenes of how it was made, and it was a
one
complete
day I'm gonna make you
disaster.
make a
Huh?
list of zombie movies that I need to see and like put them in order because Diary of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead,
Diary of the
The
Dawn
Night
is
of
the
the Living
only
Dead.
one worth watching.
There's so
Everything
many,
else
so
is
I'm just saying
rubbish.
someday you need to make a list of all the movies and I will go through and watch them because as far as I'm convinced I've seen all the necessary ones like Shaun of the
Well,
Dead.
have you seen The Return
Day
of the Living Dead?
I don't know.
Then you haven't seen
Maybe
it.
I have. No, see, this is the problem. I have no idea if I
Oh,
have.
okay.
I've seen a lot, but
Yeah.
I'd have to look it up because to me, like I
It's
think I
the
can
premise. The premise
yeah.
starts off perfect because it's like the guys are talking and he's like, "Have you heard of Night of the Living Dead?" He's like, "You mean that old black and white film?" And he's like, "Yeah. Did you know that was based on a true story?" And then it just goes into this. It's almost like a comedy. It's so good.
I like that, dude.
Um,
See, now you're selling me. I'm like, I want to see
oh,
that.
it's
Yeah,
so good. The
yeah.
practical
I
effects
know
is
I've seen that
amazing.
in Living Dead. We watched that so many times, Jordan, as a kids growing up.
Yeah.
Dawn of
I
the Dead
watched
is the
Dawn of the
only
Dead,
one
Zack
worth your
Schneider.
time.
Yeah. And then I watched Shaun of the Dead and 28 Days Later.
I
28
forced Cameron
Weeks.
to watch so many zombie
And
movies.
World War
Worth it.
Z, and then like I know I've seen
And-
3 or 4 other zombie movies, but I like I found a found footage zombie movie. Was that Diary
Day
of
of
the
the
Dead?
Dead.
So dumb. That was
Day of
but
the
I
Dead.
saw
Day
it.
of the Dead's
It's
the
like
best.
Day of
oh,
the
Masterpiece.
and
Dead
Wreck.
sucks.
Wreck was an amazing one.
Wreck
Record or
is the
whatever.
masterpiece. Yeah.
Wreck is an
1,
amazing.
2.
Cameron, highly recommend Wreck. It's a Spanish film.
It's borderline demonic though, especially the second one.
Well, I mean, there are
hate
zombies though, right?
Yeah, the
There's
first one
zombies.
there's zombies.
Zombies
Second
are
one
so
they're more
boring.
demons.
The only thing I'll do zombies is Call of Duty zombies, and besides that, it's all boring as shit. It's all
I
the exact
agree,
same thing.
Yeah. A lot of the
all the
zombies are the
exact
same.
same
They all
thing.
mesh.
Okay.
I agree. See, that's the problem. They kind of painted themselves
See,
into a
but Jordan
corner.
can
It's
say
like
that about
we only
superhero
can do
movies
this
and
one
Batman,
thing.
which that's my
Yeah,
guilty pleasure.
Every zombie movie has the character decision that forces them to Train to Busan.
Train to
Good one,
Busan's a
because it
perfect
had some of the
example,
character
yeah.
moments, but they were even funnier. Like actually like grabbing a character and throwing him
Raw.
at zombies. That's funny. I will never
Masterpiece.
not want to see that. Just like
Oh. All right, I got a couple more. Sorry. So I
this
watched
person.
I watched 10-inch Hero twice. Not
10-inch
because I
Hero.
even like wanted to. I just wanted to watch something lighthearted with my wife, and it's kind of a cute chick flick. But it's just funny. I keep watching all these movies with the guy from Boondock Saints. I know I keep mentioning him, but he just keeps showing up in all these movies I pick. I don't know why. He's not like an amazing actor or anything. The movies he just picks the same. It's kind of like Brendan Fraser picking like these movie choices that I'm like, oh, I like that concept, and he must have liked it too because he ends up in that movie.
Yeah.
Let's see, and then I watched Gremlins 2 because I just watched the first one, and they're both so good.
That movie's so weird.
And then
I can't believe that movie ever got made, dude. That's a
your
crazy
buddy,
movie.
he was on the podcast.
Colton.
He recommended Ty's friend recommended Southland Tales. He likes metal. What's his name?
Oh, Bryce. Yeah,
Bryce. He recommends Southland Tales.
Weird movie. That movie is
uh,
insane. I tried to look it up. It's the weirdest movie of all time.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird.
It's
It's like Idiocracy is how I describe it because
it's so crazy that Richard
Yeah.
Kelly went from Donnie Darko to this. It's like, what happened? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I can kind of
don't
see
think
it because
yeah.
it touches on time travel a little bit, but he really likes time travel. And then I watched Into the Grizzly Maze, which has some fun actors. But I don't know. It's just a fun movie if you like survival bears trying to kill people. The beginning is
Grizzly
so
Man.
weird. The beginning is so weird, and honestly, I was about to turn it off, but luckily the ending gets a lot better. And then I watched The Way Back. I watched it twice because I watched it again with my wife. Sometimes I'll watch movies, and then if it's good enough, I'll like watch it with her. And
The Grizzly Maze.
it was interesting. The Way Back. I love. It's just got some fun characters. What's his name? He's in Seven Psychopaths. I'll just
sorry, you're talking about the main guy?
No.
Colin Farrell.
No, Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell, thank you. I know.
Sam
I couldn't think.
Rockwell.
I keep thinking of Christopher Walken, but I'm like, I know you were talking about Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, he's
I was
just
gonna
such
say,
a great actor. Gosh
he's great.
dang. Yeah,
He
he
is
plays some
great.
fun characters. It's got Steve Carell. Anyways, some fun movies. So it's been good. I've just been watching a ton of stuff. And I'm very excited because Nick Cage is going to show up on Dead by Daylight, and I can't wait.
What's Dead by Daylight? Is it a zombie movie?
It's just a video game I play.
Oh, that's hilarious. Nick Cage is going to be in it. Dude,
Yeah.
he's transcended, man. He's everywhere.
He is. Yeah.
I love it.
All right,
I watched.
Sorry.
So did I mention on the podcast that I watched Extraction 2? Because I don't know if I can recommend
I don't
it
think so.
enough.
You texted us.
I texted you guys. Extraction 2 was a lot of fun. I liked the first one. And I should probably go rewatch the first one, but I think I like the second one better. I thought
the first one was fun.
Yeah, the first one's fun. You'll love the sequel. This is fun. It's just more, and the stunts are why you watch
Yes,
it.
Jordan, we get it.
It's like watching John Wick.
I don't know. I have to give it another
There's a
shot.
scene. There is a scene that reminded me
Sorry,
of
it's not a
Raid.
zombie movie.
There's a scene that reminded me of Raid. They're literally in a prison, and he has to go through the prison yard. It reminded me of RRR as well.
Wow.
So don't you dare compare it to that masterpiece.
Cameron, I got people saying like, when are you gonna watch the next one? Come on,
Yeah,
Cameron,
right.
get on top of that.
Yeah,
I'll
get
tell
right
the
on
people
that.
Cameron will watch them all.
Yeah, Cameron will, yes, he'll watch them all. So
No
highly
need
recommend that.
there.
And then I was on this kick. I was like machismo, male toxicity. I'm like, let's go Terminator 2. So I put on James Cameron's Terminator 2, and that movie's crazy. It's funny watching these movies now because I'm like, there's some really impressive stunts that are done in
That
this
thing
film.
flies off the ledge, that truck. I was like,
Yeah,
amazing.
drives a semi off of like a freeway ramp onto
Yeah,
or the
amazing.
bridge
Insane.
onto into the
Insane.
gutter canal. It was
I watched. I
nuts to
double
watch.
featured that with mom one night. She was just like, "You haven't seen the Terminator? She's like, we're watching both tonight." And I was like, "Okay."
Okay, yeah, dude,
So
it's just a
fun.
rite of passage, and it's so weird because I watch a movie like that, and I'm like, how is this rated R?
Yeah, and then they get to the friggin' scenes, and I'm like, "Oh."
Okay, but not in the second one. There's no scenes in the second one, so watch the second one, guys, and take your kids to it too. I was just, I remember thinking like, I was like, it is weird how like, anyway, how do I say it? It's corny, but it's very refreshing and very sweet. Like it's a very sweet film. I really like Terminator 2. I thought it was really well done. Um,
Ty, if you want to
uh,
watch a masculine film, just watch Predator. The first one, bro, was insane.
oh, I love Predator. Yeah, I love Predator, dude. Arnold Schwarzenegger
the
and
lines in
Carl
that, I'm
Weathers.
like, these are illegal today.
Crazy stuff.
Illegal
You're
lines.
bleeding. I ain't got time to bleed. And then what's he saying? He's
No,
like,
dude, the
yeah,
helicopter ride with that extremely racist and sexist guy is insane.
I love, my favorite is when Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger clasp hands, and he's
Yes.
like, "You
How
getting
you
me?"
son of a
And he's
bee.
pushing pencils, and he's like flexing. There's a close up of their biceps, so like freeze frames
It's a
for a
beautiful
second.
shot.
It's amazing.
The
Gosh,
most
yeah, that
80s
movie
thing
is
I've ever seen in my
nuts.
life.
Yes, most 80s thing.
I love that
it.
movie so freaking
It's
much.
so good.
So yeah, and then obviously we talked about her on the podcast, and then we talked about significant other on the podcast. I don't think there's anything other than Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, these are all movies we did on the podcast. I guess I didn't see anything else other than that.
And then
But,
just as a
yeah.
side note, a very depressing note, me and our cousin Josh were playing Call of Duty Zombies, and we were on round 44, and then our drunk cousin proceeded to press the power button right after we just got a max ammo.
Oh,
No.
And
I'm
I've
so
like
sorry.
I've never gotten above, I think my max is like 36 or something like that. And me and Josh were like, we might be able to get 50.
Let's go to
And
50.
then
Let's
she
go.
I was like,
Turned off your Xbox.
yeah,
That's so
a little
sad.
part of my soul died, but
They really should make that button easier. Oh no, more difficult to
difficult.
press. Yeah. I
100%.
said
Or
I'm
just
like-
like a second when you push it, it's like, are you sure?
yeah,
Why not turn
ask.
off?
Yeah, just simply ask. Every single, like, no matter what you're playing on your phone, quit. Are you sure? Just one failsafe, one measly failsafe. Nothing. It's like you push the button, it's gone. Your game is not saved. It's not gone forever. You're just like,
horrendous.
okay, all right.
Man, I've never had violent thoughts towards a woman, but I was about to hurt one of my own cousins. I was like, oh, we just spent 4.5 hours for nothing. Okay.
Anything else you guys are looking forward to besides
Okay.
Oppenheimer?
Barbie,
just-
Oppenheimer. No, I don't know if I want to see Barbie.
Napoleon
I'm
looks
conflicted. I'll wait to
Napoleon
see
looked
the
kinda
reviews. Yeah.
interesting.
Everyone's
Oh,
talking about like it's Truman Show, and I'm like, I'm willing, and it's like musical.
yeah.
And I'm like, I will go. It's like Hairspray meets Truman Show. I'm like, I'll see it, but I also will wait
Yeah,
to
I'm gonna
cast
see
any
$5.
judgment.
I'm gonna see it on $5 Tuesday. It's not.
I'll see the reviews personally, because if it gets like high praise from critics and
Tatiana's very
audiences alike,
excited to see it.
yeah,
I'm just
it
excited for
seems.
Ryan Gosling.
I
was funny,
told
I
my
saw
wife
it-
if she was interested. She has
I
no
thought-
desire to see it. And I'm like, okay.
I saw an interview with Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, and she said that like a couple of years ago or something like that, like on her bucket list of things she wanted to do before she died was to meet Ryan Gosling. And she's like, I love how it wasn't even to work with Ryan Gosling. She was like, it was just to meet him.
Yeah.
And then she just like talked about how awesome he is. I'm like, we know, okay, lady.
Yeah, lady, join the party. We've already known this all.
You're
along,
late to the
how
party.
amazing.
He already has an
Yeah.
entire fan base.
That's right. Were you even there? Did you even understand Drive when you watched it?
You're not him. I love the amount of like memes I see where it's like, did you
You're
say
not
drive?
him.
And it's just like it instantly cuts to like the scenes of him driving with the scorpion jacket. It's like, I drive.
I would love to see a
Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
mashup of Drive and Barbie. Yes, like a trailer cut with
I I
Ryan
did watch
Gosling from
a
Drive.
mashup today of Tom Cruise running because I was running. It was great.
Oh,
Dude, yeah, he had some
awesome.
great running
Yes.
scenes in.
Me and
And oh my
Cameron both
gosh,
talked about
I,
that when we watched
and
it.
then the stunt
Did
that's
he run again? I felt bad
Of
because he broke
course.
his ankle last
time.
time. I was worried it would affect
No,
him
I think
because
he's
he
broke his
ran
recovered.
like 3 or
He's
4
recovered
times
good.
in this movie. Like,
Really? Oh, I
and
Yeah.
it
love
wasn't
it. I'm
as
so
long. You
glad.
could tell like he's a little older, but like it was
Yeah,
still probably at least like
impressive to watch.
20, like
Fun to
30
watch.
seconds of him just like
I
hauling.
love it. Well,
But I mean,
so
the
did you
craziest stunt
did
is the
we
one
did we
that's
talk about that,
advertised.
Jordan, or did you show me that YouTube video? It was like Tom Cruise in the art of his running. Did I show you
I
guys
don't
that video?
maybe not. Just send us the link.
Oh, I will send you a link, guys. Okay, so real quick, like it's a joke. Like he always runs in his movies contractually. No, he's like openly said he's like I think running is like he references like old actors and stuff like that, but like it is part of like an action movie motif, and he talks about it, and he goes so like running the way he's running in movies like upright, back straight. It's not even the best way to run. It's not the
Oh,
most, but
I
it's about showmanship. And I was like, that's kind of cool because like it does look impressive. Like watch any of his movies where he probably like some of the biggest ones was the third Mission Impossible movie where
That long
literally
shot
runs multiple miles,
through the
yeah.
village.
long
Yeah.
track shot, which everyone had to be in the right position so he could run through the street without like blasting into someone.
I watched
Um,
I just have
but
to say really quick, I watched a
every movie he runs.
YouTube video today about somebody's like how to run like Tom Cruise, and it's basically the Family Guy joke. I know they did it first, but he's the kid's like, I got to get the gay out of my body, so he's like, it's
It's so funny, dude.
great.
Yeah. But anyway, I'll send you that YouTube video. It's like the theory behind Tom Cruise's run, but it's really interesting. Like it's a
Funny,
totally
it
interesting
showed up.
thing.
It showed
So,
up on my YouTube suggested after I was watching a video about why Her is a perfect movie,
oh
and then
yeah.
one of the suggested ones was like Tom. It was like 6.5 or a similar video. It was like 6.5 minutes of just Tom Cruise running, and I was like, why is this on my suggested feed?
That's funny. Yeah, it's not just a compilation, but he talks about it, and you hear Tom Cruise in interviews talking about it because they're always like, "You like to run a lot," because like they'll observe this, but it's a very intentional, and it's kind of cool when you hear why, and then when you see him run, you're like, "Yeah, I get it." Like because there's nothing like we used to
Always
joke
Sunny
about
in
this.
Philadelphia. I get it.
I get it. Danny DeVito, I get it. I've been watching It's Always Sunny. Yeah, the newest season, which I gotta say,
So good.
it does feel like a slight return to form. I've liked a lot of these episodes, and part of it is interesting to watch three very successful men, independently outside of Sunny that are now like coming to terms with like world that's very different, and they're making
Yes.
social
Oh,
commentary
the
that
Chuck E.
almost makes them seem
Cheese.
like old man Scott. That was a great episode too that talks about this, where they're like, well, back in the day it was acceptable, and I was like, no, it was still bad at the time, but like it was bad for different reasons or whatever, right? Like I was like, we used to be able to joke about these things, but now we can't anymore. He goes,
Yeah.
well, who am I supposed to be laughing at? Because it's only funny if there's someone that I'm laughing at. It's
Yeah.
so funny. It's a great look at just our where we're at right now, so hey guys, we love you and respect your time. Thanks for listening in this long. We wanted to add some levity to a very poignant episode, but we're really grateful you guys tuned in. So guys, have been Future Hidden Movie Gems. Leave us an email, futuremovies@gmail.com. Tell us a movie that you'd like us to review. Leave us a comment on our YouTube channel. You can see our whole catalog of movies that we reviewed. We love you guys, listeners. Take it easy and stay safe.
Bye.
Peace. God's children are not for sale.